It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the 5th Caribbean Internet Youth Internet Governance Forum, right here in St. George, Grenada, and online, where young people from across the region and the world are joining us. Since its beginning in 2022, the CYIGF has grown from an inspired youth-led initiative at the ITU Generation Connect Summit into a powerful platform where Caribbean youth shape the conversation on internet governance. Now, along the way, it has sparked the creation of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network, and earned recognition as an official national, regional, and sub-regional initiative of the United Nations Internet Governance Forum. Today, ladies and gentlemen, as we step into our 5th edition, we continue the journey, tackling critical issues such as artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, the policy and regulatory environment, the empowerment of women in information communication technologies, and more. The CYIGF is not just about the future, it is about the present role of young people in shaping digital transformation for the Caribbean and beyond. So to everyone here and all those joining us virtually, we say your voice matters. Your perspective counts, and this is your platform to make an impact. Welcome, everybody, to the 5th Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, where the leaders of tomorrow are leading today. Let's start with Mr. Rodney Taylor, Secretary General of the CTU, and Mr. Tariq Mohammed, Chair of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network, to bring us welcome remarks.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon again. He just gave my speech, actually, so I can shorten it now. Good afternoon. Welcome again to the second part of our today's session. You know, I started this morning with a quiz. There's one question I forgot to ask you, and you now know what a CCTLD is, right? Good, okay. So, do you know it's a country code top-level domain. So, do you know the .ai, like artificial intelligence? Do you know which country that No. No. Shh. Yes. No. Close. Not you. Any takers? .ai? Yes. Who said Anguilla? Okay. You're not working for the NTRC, right? Okay. All right, good. Anguilla, that's right. Anguilla, and it's the hottest CCTLD right now. They're making millions of dollars off of the registration of .ai. So that's just a bit of trivia there. So this morning was about laying the groundwork, and this afternoon is about engaging with those persons who will live within that framework that we build, our young people. So this is the 5th Internet Governance Forum. It's in its 5th year, and as the MC so eloquently pointed out, this started as an initiative coming out of the ITU's Generation Connect that took place in 2022 in Kigali. Tariq was there, you'll hear from him next. Gabrielle was there. I think Nigel was there as well, yes, in Kigali. So this session actually matters as much or even more than the session that went before, because the decisions that we make right now on artificial intelligence, on data, on cybersecurity, will shape the world that today's young people inherit and run. And too often the decisions regarding how these policies are made, how the technical standards are developed in rooms without young people, the voices of young people. And this is something that we want to change. And this forum is meant to close that gap and to give the youth a voice. And this is not something that the CTU plans and invites young people. This forum is planned by the young people themselves. They decide the topics, they decide the speakers, and this is what you will witness this afternoon, the product of our youth network, which we encourage you to join. We certainly encourage the young people from Grenada to learn more about the youth network, but not just sign up for it. Be active in your participation, in your ideas. You have full autonomy to shape the future and the development of the youth network with the CTU's support. So Tariq will tell you a bit more about the CIYN. He'll tell you a bit more about that later. And also, just to let you know that in July 2024, the United Nations IGF, which is, I told you about a global IGF put on by the United Nations, well, they recognize the CYIGF as a national and regional initiative. So if you go on the UN IGF's website, you will see this initiative recognized globally as a forum for the discussion of internet governance issues by young people. We also have a SIDS IGF, a small island developing states internet governance forum that took place in Mauritius 2 months ago? A month ago, yeah, time is moving. So my message to the young people in this room today and joining us online, of course, welcome to our online participants, is especially our Grenadian youth on home soil. CIYN is here for you, but it only works if you actually show up. Don't just add your name to the network, be active participants. We want your voices to be heard. We want to hear from you, your concerns. We want your perspective on all of the issues we discussed. You saw the complexity of internet governance, the different players, those who control the infrastructure, the applications, the policies, the technical standards. There's an opportunity for you to help shape those standards. So to Tariq and the CIYN team, thank you for building this. Thank you for your dedication to the task, and we look forward to engaging with you and with the other young people in this room and online. So welcome again to the 5th Youth IGF. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Not really much to say. I mean, SG and the MC really covered everything on my very small speaking points list. But for the young people that are here, is today the first time you all have ever attended an internet governance forum? Yeah? And how did you find this morning went? Fun? Learned a lot? The lunch was good? Yeah? The lunch was great. So as we heard, this has been an initiative that we've been doing since 2022. This is the 5th iteration of the Internet Governance Forum. Every year we move to a different country and hope to engage more local participants, particularly youth. In the Caribbean ICT Youth Network, we have over, I think, 400 members now, Gabby. However, we only have a handful of Grenadians as part of that network. We're hoping that through this afternoon's engagement, we'll be able to have everyone here and more, those online or those within your own networks of those that are here, to be able to join and be part of that. The youth represent the next generation of our leaders, whether that be the politicians, policymakers, ICT regulators, innovators, entrepreneurs. And the CTU has been so kind to give us a space, starting off with this Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, to design what the concerns are, the interests are. This afternoon you'll be hearing on 4 key areas. The first one, of course, being AI. We can't get AI, we can't have a digital forum without mentioning AI. We're looking at the digital creative economy, the opportunities and barriers for, opportunities for and barriers against youth participation in the global, regional, and national digital spaces, as well as a Grenada focus session, which was designed by you, the Grenadians that are here today. So we're very much excited for today's session and would like to encourage you all to be very actively engaged. Please feel free to network with us if you're here across not just today but the other days. We'd love to have you here. The overarching Caribbean ICT Youth Network, of course, steps back from the scope of internet governance and focuses on wider youth empowerment and inclusion at within the ICT space. In particular, we have mentorship programs, fellowship programs, internship programs, and we currently have 3 CTU interns. You'll be hearing from 2 of them this afternoon on one of the panels. And the third one is really the one, if you're looking at a lot of our social media posts lately, it's done by her. So we've had a lot of success in engaging youth, and that's something that we really want to continue to sustain and grow as we move forward. So to kick off the 5th Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, I welcome you all and hope you all have a great time.
Thank you, sir. Right, so let's get to it. The very first panel for this afternoon focuses on youth, AI, and the future of digital Caribbean. This session will focus on how young people can leverage artificial intelligence and other related digital tools to support their development in the classroom or at the workplace. It's time to meet our panelists. Mr. Shergaun, Roserie, CEO, Obtronics Limited. As I invite, of course, the various individuals, please come forward. This individual is joining us remotely. Next, Mr. Joshua Andall, CARICOM Youth Ambassador. We invite you forward. Mr. Stefan Boudou, Chief Technical Officer, Innovatech Enterprises Limited, joining us remotely. And Ms. Chanel McPherson, Board Member, ISOC Jamaica, joining us remotely. Ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for this panel discussion is Mr. Tariq Mohammed, CIYN Chair and Advisor to the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union.
All right, good afternoon. Hearing from me again quite soon. Joshua, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Awesome. So, as I just mentioned, you really can't have a digital discussion without AI now, can you? Every day we see more and more how AI is embedded in our lives, whether it be how we learn, how we work, how we communicate, how we solve problems. And for Caribbean youth, that presents both tremendous opportunities as well as an important responsibility. The question is no longer if we should use AI, but rather how can we equip persons, particularly young people, to leverage AI effectively, critically, and most importantly, responsibly. Whether that be to strengthen their education, expand their career opportunities, or develop solutions to really solve the Caribbean challenges and also have a meaningful voice and shape the digital future of our region. So today in this first panel, we'll be exploring just that, what this future could look like, and more importantly, how young people can begin doing it and help create an AI-driven future. So joining me, I have 4 panelists. They were already introduced. Can we probably see them online as well? So our online panelists are Mr. Shergaun Roserie from Obtronics, Mr. Stefan Boudou from Innovatech Enterprises Limited, and Ms. Chanel McPherson from ISOC. Just giving a second for them to come up. Hi, Shergaun.
Hey, Tariq. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Just giving a second for the other 2. Okay, well, while we're waiting for the 2 panelists, I guess we could get the discussion going. So Shergaun, as I have you here smiling so brilliantly, your journey has really been taking you from robotics and the STEM education sector in St. Lucia to entrepreneurship and working within global technology environments. Many young people hear that they need to learn AI, but may not really understand what that might mean in practice. If you were to advise some young people, say between the ages of 16 to 25 today, what AI and digital capacity, what is the specific AI and digital capacity skills that you would really advise them to start developing? And how can they then turn those skills into real opportunities from within the Caribbean region? Shergaun?
So thanks for that question, Tariq. So over the last over the last 6 years, my team, we've led projects for enterprises and government agencies across 10 countries. We worked regionally and internationally. So we're very familiar with that space and what is required for advanced AI and agentic systems. So apart from becoming, for example, learning how to build your own models or possibly becoming an AI researcher, which is at the top end of the spectrum, I would say some of the lower hanging fruit is definitely really understanding the capabilities of the models that exist today. So understanding the strengths of systems like Gemini, Claude, OpenAI, and even understanding better some of the more niche models like the open source models released by some of the Chinese companies, and some of the models that have usage capabilities specifically for, let's say, generating media such as Higgsfield AI. So really it's understanding what are these models capable of and what are they not capable of. You'd be surprised that just with the wide suite of AI tools that are available today, some are more useful for certain use cases, some are not, and some people just don't understand really which ones might be better for different use cases. So one thing is really familiarizing yourself with which tools are available and which tools are better for which certain use cases. The second thing I would say is really AI technologies are really a multiplier. So at the end of the day, you still need strong fundamentals in some area, which might be data analytics, which might be cybersecurity. And then those AI tools you leverage on top of that to multiply whatever you're doing in that certain area. So whether it be that you're a software developer, I know even in some contexts you might use AI for vibe coding. There are some software developers that use AI on another level where it's that they are able to design these system architecture documents and then pass it on to some agentic system that can then multiply them tenfold, right? So it's really understanding, okay, if I have some depth in one area, how can some AI system then multiply my workload, multiply my work output? Similarly, for if you are a graphic designer, like you have these fundamental skills, but then how do you take your understanding of that fundamental skill and then you multiply it with AI? How can you maybe give one prompt and then be able to generate 10 graphics? Like, and not only just generating those graphics, but actually making them good graphics. You know, that getting that kind of output is still requires some skill and understanding and depth in that core skill. Um, and then finally, I think it is the final thing that I would say is just literacy about these AI systems, having the critical thinking, being able to have that creativity and problem solving when actually using the systems is one thing that will never go away, which is again more on the human aspect of all things.
Thank you. AI is a multiplier built off of your domain knowledge and skills. I really like that outlook. Turning to Joshua now that we have here in person. So Joshua, you've worked with youth at a regional lens in your role as a CARICOM youth ambassador. But when we talk about AI, there's often a gap between the excitement surrounding AI and then the everyday realities of young people. So whether that be finding employment, financing education, starting businesses, or even being able to compete at an international level. In your opinion, where do you see AI having the greatest potential to improve the economic opportunities available to Caribbean youth, particularly those that may not come from a technical background?
Well, for me particularly, I think Shergaun spoke about one of them. I think three main areas would be, first of all, access, amplification or multiplication, as Shergaun spoke about, and then agency. You know, the truth is, before the rise and the advent of technology and the sporadic increase of artificial intelligence, no, there were a lot of barriers to entry to use a lot of these tools, or a lot of barriers to entry to specific niche services. For example, a young entrepreneur probably would not have been able to afford a marketing associate or a marketing consultant within their team, or a financier to assist them. But now a lot of the barriers to entry to these things have decreased significantly. So now we have individuals, young entrepreneurs, someone who is not necessarily technologically savvy, who is able to access these tools and use them and benefit from them, whether it is for personal, professional, institutional, organizational growth. So that's one aspect. The access to these tools have been significantly increased as a result of a decrease in terms of the barriers to entry. The second is amplification. Now, Shergaun spoke about this beautifully. Now, a lot of people, a lot of individuals believe that AI is here to take their jobs, but in reality, I mean, there are some jobs that are threatened, but the reality of the situation is AI is more of a multiplier. And even more so if you don't have any sort of software development or AI background, AI can definitely multiply the current understanding or the current capabilities and skills that you have. And there's also an epistemic dimension to deal with knowledge, because AI would have all of the knowledge, but the AI doesn't have the context, it doesn't have the judgment, the wisdom, or the purpose on how to apply that knowledge. So that's again why the human aspect in terms of the interaction is necessary. And that's why your skills would be multiplied, your capabilities. And finally, we have agency. No, it's no secret that in the Caribbean we have small economies, and we've suffered because of it. And many young entrepreneurs, individuals, they've had trouble in terms of scale. Smaller economies, smaller potential market, smaller potential customers. And it's in part because a lot of the systems and institutions that we've built, they're built off of, and as a result, they administer scarcity, so they affect the young entrepreneurs or the individual. But the truth is, because of the advent of artificial intelligence, no, the playing field is not necessarily 100% level, but it's a lot easier now for young entrepreneurs or individuals throughout the Caribbean to compete at a higher level. Because again, the barriers to entry to use a lot of these tools has significantly decreased. So something that was preventing a high-tech, innovative entrepreneur from creating and shipping and marketing something at an international or global level is not necessarily there anymore. So now they have the ability to scale at a much rapid and faster rate when it comes to artificial intelligence. And I think that's extremely important, because it kind of fights back to technological determinism, which is the idea that technology is just happening, and we as humans just need to adapt to whatever future it gives to us. We're the ones who are building these technologies, you know? So I think the three main areas, economically speaking, that we'd be able to benefit from as youth, especially those who don't have any firm technological background, would be access. There's an increased access to a lot of these tools. The second would be amplification of the current capabilities that we have. And finally, agency. We now have the ability and the possibility, the access to scale any sort of innovation that we create.
Thank you. So I guess we can leave here with those three A's: access, amplification, and agency.
Definitely. Unironically, it's an alliteration. So if I ask any of you what it is after that: access, amplification, agency.
So we're giving a prize at the end for those that remember it?
You're giving a prize.
Thank you, Joshua. So turning back online now to Stefan. So Stefan, we're increasingly seeing all these AI tools that allow someone with relatively little technical background, as we kind of heard just now, to write code, analyze information, and automate workflows, or even build applications from scratch. From the perspective of somebody that actually develops these technologies, how can young people leverage these tools to support their personal development without becoming overly dependent on them? And additionally, what do you think are some foundational skills that still matter in this AI-assisted world that we're looking at?
Thanks for the question, Tariq. I'll laugh a little bit because Joshua and Shergaun beautifully put AI as a multiplier before. And it really is. And I think everybody should be using AI again, as a multiplier, rather than a replacement. And the best way to go about doing this is to create things with AI. The key distinction I want to make is instead of saying something like, build this or do this for me, you should instead be saying, how do I build this or how do I do this? Learning happens in the process of doing and struggling. If you just have AI do it for you, not only have you robbed yourself of learning anything, you have no way to verify whether it's a good solution or not. For example, our technical teams use AI a lot. But one of our core principles that we adhere to is that we ourselves, the humans, solve the problem first. Not necessarily implement, but we flesh it out and we could iterate and critique using AI, but at the end, we have a solution document that we fully understand and details what the solution is supposed to look like. So when we hand it off to AI agents to implement, we have a concrete understanding of what it's supposed to be so we can verify against it. Again, for those of you who are in the process of learning, this is even more important. I would say, for starters, don't use AI to implement yet. You should do things manually and use AI to critique or debug, understand what it tells you, and then adjust and re-implement yourself. Which leads me into my next point. AI is simply a tool that can and will often make mistakes. And when it does, there needs to be someone with the knowledge to say otherwise. Now, in a world where producing things has become so easy, the person who can verify the solutions are now even more important. That being said, learnability and deep expertise isn't the only thing that's invaluable. It's quite a lot, but my top three would be problem solving, communication, and adaptability. AI does well when tackling a well-defined and well-structured problem. Problem solving is the skill of taking a large, complex problem, understanding the requirements, the constraints, and decomposing it into smaller, manageable problems. As for communication, this is often ignored by people in the sciences. We kind of look down at communication as a skill, but it's extremely important for any kind of success, whether it's talking to stakeholders to understand the problem, or bridging the gap across disciplines, or even explaining your solution. Ultimately, there needs to be someone who can communicate well. Otherwise, nothing happens, or you end up with a solution that nobody wants or understands. Adaptability. Adaptability is so important right now. Change is happening at a seemingly exponential rate. New tools, new methodologies, even new disciplines emerging. And if you're not willing to experiment and try new things, try new tools, even if what you do currently works, that doesn't mean that there is a better way. Fail to adapt and you will get left behind. In summary, don't be afraid of AI or becoming completely dependent on it, but rather you should seek to learn the fundamentals of whatever field you are in. Use AI aggressively as a tool, but make sure you understand enough to challenge it and ultimately make your own decisions.
Thank you. And it looks like we're working in threes today. Joshua, you just mentioned Access Amplification Agency. Now Stefan is mentioning another set of threes: problem solving, communications, adaptability. Looking at AI as a multiplier, not a replacement. I think we're hearing a lot of converging views from what we're seeing so far, right? So coming on to our last speaker in this first set of questions, Chanel. Hi, Chanel. So young people often are among the fastest adopters of these new technologies, but being comfortable with technology doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the risks that are associated with it. In your opinion, what should responsible AI look like for a Caribbean person today, particularly a young person that is looking at the areas of privacy, cybersecurity, misinformation, bias, and understanding what happens to the information that we give to these platforms?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tariq. I hope that you're able to hear me and the participants. Greetings from Jamaica to the Spice Island, and Good afternoon to the respective stakeholders there. So that's a wonderful question, because I believe as young people, I think we take AI such as getting a new bicycle at Christmas. So usually our parents might throw some training wheels on there, unless you have parents like mine that you got to learn the hard way. But I mean, you know, by observing, we would have known how to get on that bike. We would have known how to ride the bike. And but it doesn't necessarily mean that we would have understood how to navigate the bicycle safely, you know what I mean? And so we had to learn how to steer, how to brake, how to ride, and how to recognize that danger. And most importantly, how and what to do when something goes wrong. And so I believe that AI operates in a very similar way. And I think young people might take AI as that bicycle that we might have gotten at that Christmas gift. And we are most comfortable. Yes, we get excited, but we are very comfortable as young people with new technology. But being comfortable with the technology doesn't necessarily mean that we understand its risk. And so there are 5 important things that I believe that young Caribbean persons should consider when it comes on to AI. You mentioned a few of them, if not all, but it comes down to privacy, cybersecurity. We have to look at the misinformation, the bias of the AI system, and also the big A, how we take accountability for those outputs. So I'm going to touch on a few of these points, right? When it comes down to the privacy, we have to become a lot more intentional about how we use these AI systems. So just because we're able to upload the information doesn't mean that we should. I would advise anybody to input things such as passwords, confidential documents, private conversation, or even sensitive data or any personal information, just because the system is there and because it's convenient for us to use. So now, young people, we have to be asking ourselves. Matter of fact, I'm also young, not that old. So we have to be asking ourselves, what information are we giving to this platform? And do we understand what may happen to the data that we're giving it? Secondly, I want to touch on is the cybersecurity aspect. AI particularly does not replace the basic cybersecurity laws. And I just want us to understand that we still need strong passwords. We still need multi-factor authentication. We still need to be careful of the links, the files, the scams that we get online. Because we know that AI scams now are even more convincing than the ones that we usually get. Right? We have the deep fake AIs now that are impersonating people. So it's critical that we understand these things. Another thing that I want us to consider is the misinformation that comes with AI. Now, when it comes to misinformation, we're talking about is the data that the AI is producing, is it accurate? So now we simply have to be asking, we simply have to be questioning, can AI give me an answer, right? So I believe that we're more concerned about that question. Can AI give me an answer, rather than asking, how do we know that information that AI is giving us is accurate? So we have some Caribbean teachers, right? Instead of getting 100 on our particular grades, right? We input the answers in the AI. The AI tells us, all right, this is the particular answer. Boom. Instead of getting that 100, we get 96% on our grades. And who's responsible for that? We are responsible for it. And so the data itself produces that misinformation that we're referring to. Secondly, well, this is my 4th point, bias. I want to speak on bias. So this question is for the persons in the audience. Who do you think input, or how do you think the AI gets its knowledge? Let me ask that question to the audience, right? some of the youths in the audience. How do you think the AI gets the knowledge? I'm not sure if anybody responding, but probably Tariq can tell me.
Any takers? Hearing some comments. You could probably use the mics on your table. Yeah, good.
From us.
Exactly, right. That's perfect. From you, from me, from Tariq, from all of us, right? From societies. So, which particularly means that sometimes the AI may produce unfair or inaccurate results because the information it is learned does not represent everyone geographically. And that is extremely important for us as Caribbean people. So we should ask whether or not these systems understand our community, our culture, our languages, and even what's happening in our day-to-day lives or realities, right? So we have to be question these things. And it could be and if we're not questioning these things, we're simply just expecting the persons who are inputting the data to reflect on our own experiences. And as I mentioned before, the big A, accountability. Whatever that AI outputs to us, we are the ones that are making that decision. All right. And I just want to conclude with this, Tariq. When it comes down to the responsibility of when it comes down to using the AI responsibly, it's not about being afraid of the overall technology. It's about learning how to navigate it. And I'm going to draw back for that bicycle scenario I gave before. So we need to understand is how to use AI safely. We need to understand when to slow down and when to ask questions. And when to ask the question, where is it taking us? And essentially, the goal is to become more informed and more responsible navigators of the AI without giving away our privacy, our critical thinking, and our responsibility to the technology. So thank you, Tariq, for that question.
Thank you, Chanel.
Thank you, Chanel.
You kind of echoed what Shergaun said as well. Do not be afraid, but also to be both intentional and accountable when you're using AI. Really also like the analogy of the bicycle, not just learning how to ride a bike, but learning how to stay, and more importantly, if you're going to crash, know how to crash safely. Coming back to the room now, Joshua. So, if we were to accept that AI will change the kinds of jobs that are available to the young Caribbean people in the future, then preparing for the future cannot be left entirely for the young persons themselves. From a regional perspective, based on your work in CARICOM, what should governments, education systems, and the private sector be doing differently over the next 5 years that can help prepare young people for an AI-enabled Caribbean economy?
In thinking about this question, I've not held but come to the conclusion that since the advent of technology, and again, the rapid increase in the mainstream use and knowledge of AI, we as a Caribbean, we've been wrestling with the wrong question, or at least an incomplete question. The question asks, how do we prepare the youth for the jobs of the future? But I think another dimension should be, because the question has a bit of technological inevitability within it, which again is the idea that, hey, the technology is just going to change the jobs, and our responsibility is just to adapt to whatever future that it gives us. But I think that we should also add to the question, how do we help youth understand and know that they as well can shape the future? And for me, I'm going to give you another set of threes and an alliteration. It would be investing in the people, investing in the platforms that we give those people, and giving the people who now have those platforms more possibilities. So what do I mean when I say investing in the people? The education that we're giving our citizens, our individuals now about AI, it's too normal. It's not enough. And I think someone mentioned this already. But technology is increasing, especially AI now, is increasing at such a fast rate. By the time you learn something today, it's not going to be obsolete, but you'd have to learn so much more within the next month, 2 or a few months from now. So I brought a problem, but I'm a man of solutions. So the solution to that is to, and I think Shergaun mentioned it, we need to start investing in and educating our people in the areas that would be able to withstand that rapid technological growth, especially AI. And those areas would be things like communications, soft skills, problem solving, critical thinking, niche specific knowledge within key areas in different sectors, economies, etc. I think that would be extremely important, because allow me to paint a picture for you and the audience in the room, as well as those online. If you're interacting with a chatbot, you ask it a question and you get a response within 5 seconds. Most times it's less than 5 seconds. But you get that response and it's so fast. You know, what then within that interaction or within that sort of communication is the most important aspect, you know? The most important aspect is the question that you ask it, and knowing what question to ask it, and understanding or being able to identify if the response that you've gotten is a correct response, is an appropriate response, or is an accurate response. And I think once the governments, institutions, NGOs, organizations invest in educating our individuals, our people, and upskilling them in these areas, critical thinking, etc., we increase their level of intellectual discernment, because now they're able to not only be operators or users of the sort of technology, AI, but they're also able to be innovators and interrogators of it. So they don't just accept what the technology is giving them. The next one would be platforms. Now, I've had the opportunity to work, professionally speaking, with AI marketing consulting in 20 plus countries, and that includes different economies, different sectors, different individuals, public, private organizations. And what I've noticed is that the key thing, especially in terms of innovation, is that a lot of people understand that talent cannot grow within a vacuum. Talent cannot grow outside of the necessary environment that would enable it to grow. And we in the Caribbean here, within the Caribbean, we see broadband devices, connectivity, cybersecurity, all of these things, we see them as not key issues, but peripheral issues to the side of our eye. But the truth is, these issues are key issues right now. Digital infrastructure is economic infrastructure. The digital aspect of the economy is so big right now. So we cannot continue to treat these things as if they're not important or not key. Again, digital infrastructure is economic infrastructure. So for me, I think moving on from that, we need to not only invest in the platforms that we give them, but we also need to give them more possibilities. Because for me, I think you can upskill them in specific areas, you can give them specific platforms, but if you don't give them the possibilities to use the platforms and to use the knowledge in the areas that you've upskilled them, you're still failing them. The private and the public sector, they need to come together and they need to give our youth more apprenticeships, more internships, more opportunities, more innovation challenges, more funding to create specific solutions. Because for a long time, the Caribbean, we as a Caribbean, I'm including myself, we've been net importers of specific solutions for whatever problems that we have. But again, because of the access, because of the agency that we have, because of the amplification and the multiplication, we now have the opportunity to be net exporters. What that means is that we have the opportunity now to not only create solutions that work for us within the Caribbean, but create solutions that work for us and export them, sell them to different economies once it works. And I think within the next 5-10 years, that would be the goal for me. You know, I think those are the 3 areas that I think we should be focusing on as governments, institutions. So we should increase the knowledge, education that we give our people. We should give them more proper platforms so that they would be able to be able to create, innovate, and of course, give them more possibilities, the ability to be able to create and showcase what they've done, because then it raises the question of distributive justice, you know? If these platforms, if that education, etc., if it's necessary for an individual to be able to create wealth, to innovate, or to compete at a national level, if they don't have access to that, are we not then just simply ignoring or deepening the current inequalities that exist. And within the next 5 to 10 years, that's something that we really need to look at.
We're stuck on threes this afternoon.
Definitely.
People, platforms, and possibilities, all underscored by both the enabling environment as well as strong public-private partnerships and, well, really the multi-stakeholder collaboration when you think of it. Because it will also include the CSOs, the academia, so not just public and private sectors, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So turning back to online, Stefan, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Stefan is still with us. Great. So, Stefan, looking back now at the private sector lens, imagine you were to hire a young graduate 5 years from now, and almost every applicant can use the same AI tools, whatever that may look like in the next 5 years. What do you think would be a distinguishing factor from the person that you would want to hire? And what are some of the other human and technical capabilities that you would actually think are more valuable as AI becomes more common in the workplace?
Thanks for this question and opportunity, Tariq. I'm smiling because we don't have to wait 5 years, as this question is extremely relevant to me. And I'm going to be a little bit selfish since we are in the process of aggressively expanding our technical teams. So if you looking for a job, youth, or if you have already applied, pay close attention for your potential interview. I'll rely a bit on my previous answer. So since there's a lot of overlap between what I said then and what I'll be saying now, I won't go into the specific technologies as that may change, very soon. But rather the skills that I look for when we hire in technical staff, or in particularly, one of the more emergent roles is called a FDE, a forward deployed engineer, who goes to a company, goes to a country with a team and solves the problem on their own. Now, when we look into hire for somebody for that role or somebody in general, there are a few things that we look for. Some of them might sound a bit, you've heard it before because I said it before, problem solving and communication. Every organization is looking for a solution, and usually the ones that are looking for a solution has a set of complex problems that are extremely or can be extremely unique to them. So being able to go in and communicate with the staff, understanding their processes, where the problems lie, and even educating them about what is possible with AI is absolutely essential. So that's the communication aspect. And then after you've done that, you have this extracted set of complex information. You have to completely understand it, break it down into well-defined structured problems, then solutions, which you can then use AI to implement. Notice again the difference between finding a solution and implementing it. Very, very different. AI is the implementer, you are the one that finds the solution, because the solution has to be based in your understanding. That's where the problem solving comes in. Next two skills, learnability and adaptability. We touched on this earlier, but again, each organization will have a complex and unique ecosystem. This can consist of different software systems, protocols, data organization, etc. And as someone coming in to provide a solution, it's your job to learn and understand their system. So you could not only create a solution, but speak their language. And as for adaptability, the tools and technologies obviously are evolving so quickly. The way we wrote code a couple of months ago, is completely different to how we do it now. We don't actually do much writing by hand anymore, as I think Shergaun mentioned earlier, where we create a document and hand it off to the agents and whatnot. And that, again, might change in a few months' time. Even the way we deliver solutions have changed. So being open to and having the ability to quickly adapt to new tools and technologies is, again, essential. Without it, as a technology company, we'd have gotten left behind a long time ago. And finally, something not previously mentioned, but being meticulous and thinking critically. As Chanel mentioned, when AI creates something or creates something on your behalf, or AI creates something anywhere at any time, somebody has to be held accountable. Somebody's responsible for what comes out of that. And that person is you, the person delivering the solution. So being meticulous and thinking critically, you have to be able to examine every single thing, in great detail. The temptation comes very quickly to defer um, the thinking or the choices that the models make to the model. But I see it every day where the models generate things that are suboptimal, unnecessary, or just wrong. Sitting thoroughly and examining the solution, questioning the decisions against your own thinking, correcting and pushing back. This is what separates you from simply being a filter to an LLM versus an engineer or somebody who could actually provide value. So again, if you are applying, take notes. Thanks, Tariq.
No problem. And so I'm guessing you have some openings right now. If anyone's interested, please, his contact information is on our website. Chanel, coming back to you now. So the AI systems are increasingly influencing our education, employment, and even access to information and how persons can exercise their rights online. Why do you think this is important for Caribbean youth not only to understand and use AI, but also to participate in conversations such as these on how technology should be governed? And also practically looking, how can more young Caribbean people get a seat at this table? So we have, the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, but how do you think other youth can get involved beyond this?
Great question again, Tariq. So I like starting off with scenarios because we live in the real life, and to be honest, right now we have AI screening our resumes before they even get to a human being. Okay. Then after screening the resumes, then we have AI giving us our video interviews. So the AI is already determined whether or not we are qualified for opportunities. Right? We use the AI every day for explanation, tutoring, brainstorming, summarizing our data, and just getting feedback on our overall work. So what I'm saying is if the AI is already determining what opportunities that we can get as young people, I want to ask, why should I care about AI? Why should you care about AI, Therese? And why should anyone listening care about AI? And it's quite simple. We need to understand how these systems, we need to understand the system behind these technologies and how they are making decisions for us, and those decisions affect us gradually. And these are some of the questions that we should be asking as to why we need to get involved in AI governance. We need to understand who designed these systems, what information the system was trained on, what data is the system collecting about us, how is it, sorry, how is it that it's making its decision? Is it a fair representation of our Caribbean people? As well as when the system gets something wrong, who is there to challenge these decisions or discussions? And so, if young people like myself aren't a part of these conversations, these decisions will be made about our educational systems or employment or digital rights without us or without the persons making decisions understanding how they might impact us as young people. And regarding how we can get a seat at the table, if anyone here is listening to my voice, you already have a seat at the table. So, Tariq, I think that somebody didn't hear what I just said. So, I'm going to repeat that. If you're hearing my voice from all the way in Jamaica, yeah, you already have a seat at the table at the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. And you don't have to be an expert or a policymaker to make your voice be heard. And so the ask Tariq is, how can persons participate in these discussions, get involved? Well, they can get involved. I started at my university, and I'm sure that some universities may have these discussions as well. You can join the youth organizations such as, was mentioned before, the Caribbean ICT Youth Network. That's one that you can consider. You can attend these internet governments forum through research and those through civil society ISAC chapters. You can also join there. And I guarantee it, throughout this entire Internet Governance Forum, you will hear about different opportunities where your voices can be heard. I'm sure that some were already mentioned and there are a lot more to come. So I'm imploring for our young people to stay attentive while these discussions are happening and ask those questions. So, you can share your experiences, ask the questions, contribute your ideas. And what we need to do as young people, through this discussion, we create opportunities for ourselves. So to conclude, Tariq, we shouldn't only be generating or we shouldn't only be learning from the AI. We should also be one taking part and helping the next generation to shape the rules around it, not just learning the technology. So thank you, Tariq.
Thank you, Chanel. And so as we look to really wrap up this panel, really quickly, really briefly, just want to get from each of the four panelists, if you had to give one practical action that a Caribbean person should take now, how can they better prepare themselves for an AI-enabled future? So really quickly, Joshua.
I would tell them to upskill in areas such as problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, communication, soft skills, so that they would be, like I said, interrogators of the technology rather than just users of it.
Thank you. Stefan?
Hi, yeah. I would say pick a real problem in your life or community and use AI to build a solution for it. The important part is to actually build something rather than spending months consuming AI content. I say this because the future isn't something that's going to belong to people who know how to use AI-ish. It's going to belong to people who can actually build solutions for real problems using AI.
Wonderful. Shergaun?
I would say even more so than just building, really think about how you will distribute the solutions that you create. It's great to come up with elegant solutions for problems that you might find in your community, but as an entrepreneur, the number one problem that you will come across when scaling your business is distribution of whatever solution that it is. So really spend some time thinking about how is it that you are going to get these solutions into the hands of as many people as you can, as fast as possible.
Thank you, Shergaun. And last but not least, Chanel?
Yeah, learn about the AI intentionally. Get involved in the conversation that's shaping it, as well as find the spaces where the conversations are happening and speak up, make your voice be heard. So that's my take, Tariq.
Thank you. So as we look to wrap up this panel now, we've really heard from four key panelists all around the Caribbean on youth, AI, and the future of digital Caribbean. I think we've heard a lot of converging views actually across all four of the panelists, really looking at leveraging AI as a multiplier, building off of that domain knowledge. We've heard a lot of threes, whether that be Joshua's access amplification and agency, or some of the other ones that Shergaun mentioned as well. People, platform, and possibilities as well that you mentioned, Joshua. But I think what stood out to me most importantly is in Chanel's last response, well, not the last one, but the one before that, where we were talking about how do young people know whether they have a seat at the table. And what really stood out to me is that she said, once you're hearing her voice, it means you already have a seat there. So the real question is, how can we work forward now to ensure that more young people are able to hear her voices and the voices of the youth that are here today, so that they too have a seat at the table in this digital discourse. Do we have any time for questions, or are we behind? I did see one hand raised. We could take maybe one quick question if there are any questions in person. Yes.
There is one question in the Zoom Live. What collaborations, if any, have been taking place with the Caribbean Regional Youth Council?
Is that for you? Was that question for anybody in particular? Was it for me?
They did not put anybody specific. They just asked the question.
No problem.
Well, that's a very broad question, so I'm not sure what the individual was referring to, but Caribbean Regional Youth Council is CRIC. It's like a body that represents young people. I'm not sure if it's a currently active operating body. I'm not sure about that. But I mean, I don't think anybody here would be able to properly respond to the question because it doesn't have any sort of immediate proper context. Because it could mean collaboration with specific individuals, collaboration with private entities, collaboration with the governments, organizations. So I'm not sure of the context in which the question was brought forth. Sorry.
Any more questions? Okay. Well, if no more questions, I really want to thank our panelists for joining us today, both virtually and in person. And I would also like to thank you, the audience, for being a very good audience. So with that, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you very much. Youth, AI, and the future of digital Caribbean. We invite Mr. Andall. We remain on stage. Both of you step forward, as I'm told, for a picture. And those of you online, online panelists have since left, or are they still there? Okay, please turn your cameras on. Excellent. A photo will be taken relative to all of you. Please stay at the center. On the edge. So one left, one right, so we can see those at the back. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. All right. How many of you use AI, you integrate it in everyday life and living at the moment? Just show by way of your hands. Okay. You're making money with it? Listen, AI is incredible. Of course, I strongly suggest management as best we can, but I think it's a fantastic tool in our arsenal. So I literally recommend it. In my profession, media and communications, you know it's a big deal in that industry. So we use it for the upliftment of humanity. Not otherwise, for the upliftment of humanity. All right. Our next panel will focus on youth in the digital space. Opportunities and barriers. This session will focus on opportunities for youth development within the digital space, locally, regionally, and internationally, as well as potential barriers which are being experienced around the world, such as calls for and implementations of social media bans. All panelists are joining us remotely. It's time to meet them. Mr. Jalen Monzac, Program Officer, Liberty Foundation. Mr. Albert Daniels, Senior Manager, Stakeholder Engagement for the Caribbean, ICANN. Mr. Andrew Sieupresad, Director, TAIROne Initiative, and Community Director, IEEE Young Professionals, Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Terren Finley, President, ISACA Student Group, Trinidad and Tobago. The moderator for this panel discussion is Ms. Gabrielle Johnson. She's the Vice Chair of the CTU Caribbean ICT Youth Network. There you are. Please come forward.
Hello, testing. Okay, great. So good afternoon, everyone. And again, welcome to the panel on youth in the digital space, opportunities and barriers. It's a pleasure to be here today with you guys and really to have this timely conversation. So there's no question that the digital space is creating new opportunities for us youth in areas like education, employment, entrepreneurship, innovation. But we also know that those opportunities are not equally accessible. At the same time, we're having growing conversations around online safety, which includes, social media bans and, age restrictions. And, today I think the key question is, how do we protect young people online while still ensuring that they have the freedom and opportunity to learn, to connect, to create, and to participate? So for the interest of time, as my esteemed panelists who were already introduced, I'll dive right into the questions. So I'd like to start with Mr. Albert Daniels. So internet governance can sometimes feel like a very technical or distant space to young people. Yet the decisions being made in internet governance directly affect how young people experience and how we participate in the digital world. ICANN's 2026 to 2030 strategic plan places a strong emphasis on developing a new generation of leaders and broadening participation from underrepresented communities. So, Albert, could you tell us more about what ICANN is doing to advance youth inclusion under this strategy? And importantly, what could this look like in practical terms for Caribbean youth, including through collaboration with organizations such as the Caribbean Telecommunications Union? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Gabby. And I promise I'll be on a plane to get over there sooner rather than later after British Airways cancel my flight. Congratulations on the session before. And there's no mistake that we live in a rapidly evolving digital landscape where a lot is based on a secure internet. And ICANN stands at the forefront of ensuring the stability and security of the internet's unique identifier systems. ICANN's strategic plan is not only a roadmap, it's a commitment to adaptability, innovation, and collaboration. It presents a simplified yet comprehensive vision that balances clarity with depth and addresses the multifaceted needs of ICANN stakeholders. Now, in the interest of time, I've just put a link in the chat to the strategic plan. But first, if we look at the ICANN's mission, we find that it is to ensure the stable and secure operation of the Internet's unique identifier systems. And drawing on from that, ICANN's vision is the trusted steward of the Internet's unique identifier systems. And ICANN is dedicated to strengthening the single, globally interoperable Internet for all. Now, when we look at this plan, it has several strategic goals and strategic objectives, but strategic objective number 1.1 says that we try to ensure inclusive stakeholder representation and enhance collaboration. Now, remember this morning earlier, I indicated that ICANN is not just the organization that I work for, but it also includes the multi-stakeholder community. And young people are as much a part of ICANN as the ICANN organization itself. And when we look at 3 goals under that particular strategic goal, 1.1.3 speaks to fostering an appealing environment for the next generation, speaking directly to youth. And this strategy seeks to improve ICANN's ability to attract new and motivated community members using innovative methods and to capture and retain the interests of the next generation of volunteers. So this is our objective. And 1.1.4, to develop a new generation of leaders. Again, the strategy emphasizes succession planning, introduction of new perspectives, ideas, and leadership approaches, offering leadership development opportunities and demonstrating a commitment to the growth of community volunteers. Again, this is speaking directly to giving an opportunity to young people across the globe. And as Chanel said, you know, once you can hear our voices, you are having that opportunity. And we can talk a little bit more about that. And finally, objective 1.1.5, to increase and broaden participation, particularly from underrepresented communities. So we're looking to achieve a better understanding of the changing demographics around the world, and ICANN will be better able to encourage greater participation from stakeholders regardless of their region or location. So if we just look at those three strategic objectives within the ICANN strategic plan, we can clearly see that there is an evolving space for young people, and all they have to do is take the opportunity to get involved so that they can actually frame the internet governance perspectives that lead to the development of policy for the internet that is so important to all that we do. Back to you, Gabby.
Thanks so much for that, Albert. You know, I think what is important here is really making internet governance feel more accessible and relevant to young people. And, it's encouraging to hear about the steps that ICANN is, taking to really broaden that participation and, develop the next generation of leaders, particularly from the communities that have traditionally been underrepresented. So I now move on to Mr. Jalen Monzac. So Jalen, you bring a practically interesting perspective because of your experience engaging with young people, both through the youth parliamentarian experience in St. Kitts and Nevis, and now through the Liberty Foundation's JUMP program. So from that experience, you've seen young people develop not just technical skills, but also the confidence, the leadership, and really the ability to use their voices. So what opportunities are you currently seeing for young people to develop their skills, find their voices, and become active participants in the digital space? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabrielle. And that's an excellent way of putting what I've done in terms of the Youth Parliament and with my work at Liberty Caribbean. And what I would say is that when we talk about opportunity, we're moving away from getting people online because, most persons can get online. It's about how can we get young people from access to the internet to agency, from connecting to learning, creating, earning, and influencing. And for me, I summed it up into 3 opportunities. One of the first opportunities is skills development. So you can't just be on the internet without actually having the skills that are needed to be on the internet. And a perfect example for how I have interacted with this is through Liberty Caribbean Foundation's JUMP program, which is a program that is in about 5 Caribbean markets, connecting nearly 10,000 households, distributing more than 5,000 devices, and also providing advanced and basic training in terms of using the internet. And the reason why I use the JUMP program to connect to the skills development is that for us in Liberty Caribbean, we're not just saying that we are connecting persons, we are taking it a step further in terms of giving them actual skills. So skills in terms of basic word processing, how to access applications, these kind of things. Because in our research, we've realized that there are persons that they are connected to the internet, but they don't necessarily know how to use it or how to actually make it work for them, basically. We've partnered with the Mona School of Business as well, too, because we also understand that skills development, we can't just, okay, we are training people on the skills, but when they leave from the classes, that they don't have something tangible. So for us, we've given them at the end of a 6 weeks course, for example, they get a certificate from the Mono School of Business to say that they are certified in this area. And this has yielded positive results in terms of that there are persons who have left the jump program and have gone off, for example, in Jamaica, and started their own businesses just from being interactive with the jump program. The other opportunity is voice, and as I said, I'm a youth parliamentarian, the president of the youth parliament currently, and the youth parliament has taught me that voice is not just about being outspoken or going viral. It's about understanding an issue, forming a view, communicating clearly, and being taken seriously. We at the youth parliament, we've taken that a step further in terms of us interacting with the communities, not just in terms of the brick and mortar, but using digital platforms. So for example, when we are doing any debate topics, we would use media influencers, we use social media, we put out a poll for persons in the community to interact with the topics as well too. So that way we are continuing the conversations in a national space as well as a regional space as well too. So that's an opportunity that is present for young people. And naturally, the other opportunity is being able to participate in the economy and governance. For us Caribbean young people, we have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of access to different tools and what's not. And we had a conversation about AI. For us, we can build apps, sell our services across, not just in St. Kitts, where I am living, but across the Caribbean, create businesses. For example, I know Joshua, a previous panelist, he has a AI business that, as he said, he works across 20 countries. So those are some of the opportunities that are, available for us, that we as young people, it's there for us, but it's just for us to really, take advantage of those opportunities.
Thanks so much, Jalen. From access to agency, I love that. And thank you for, providing or identifying the various opportunities for youth. And I think what comes through here is that opportunities for youth or young people, it's growing. And but really having these opportunities is only part of the equation. Young people, we need, the awareness, the confidence, the mentorship, and the support to really recognize these opportunities and really feel empowered to take the first step. So thank you for that, Jalen. Now I go over to Andrew. Andrew, when we talk about the future of the digital economy, we are talking about fields ranging from engineering and AI to cybersecurity, software development, and digital innovation. For many Caribbean young people, these areas represent significant opportunities, but there can also be uncertainty about where to start, what skills are needed, and how to gain practical experience. So from an IEEE perspective, where do you see the greatest opportunities for Caribbean youth in areas such as engineering, AI, cybersecurity, and digital innovation? And what is IEEE doing to help young people build the technical skills, networks, and leadership experience they need to take advantage of these opportunities? Over to you.
Okay, that's two good questions right there. So first of all, to answer the first one, I think regionally we are at a developmental stage in the Caribbean. And because of that provides the youth with a good opportunity to take advantage of that so we could learn the skills and help in the future to do that, right? And because we have access to the world, basically, the internet grants us access basically to the world. And this opportunity is nothing short of amazing. So to take advantage of this is what we need to use. Currently, in the IEEE, we are kind of rebuilding capacity post-pandemic. So we have to what we are doing right now is conducting capacity building and networking sessions. And this is our main way of helping and highlighting the opportunities that are available to the youth. So you would be surprised the amount of opportunities actually available in the Caribbean, but we just don't hear about it. And because of that, we are trying our best to get the information out there. Jalen kind of sums it up really well. We have the opportunities, but we need to like bridge the gap almost in order to provide the opportunities properly. So yeah, that would be it.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So I think, the key takeaway, is that, the digital economy, it presents real opportunities for Caribbean youth, but, access to these opportunities, depends on having, the right skills, the exposure, the networks, the support. And, it's encouraging to hear how IEEE is really helping to build those pathways and really prepare young people to not just participate, but to really help, shape their future. And I'd like to add, that sometimes, and I think you mentioned it, access to opportunity is not simply about, just having the skill. It's about, knowing where the opportunity exists and really having someone who can help you, navigate that pathway. So with that said, I would like to go over to Mr. Terren Finley. Terren, I want to broaden the conversation a little beyond formal programs and institutions. Young people are already using digital platforms every day to learn, to connect with one another, to build communities, create content, launch businesses, etc. And from your engagement with young people, what opportunities are you seeing for youth to learn, to connect, to create and participate meaningfully in the digital space? And what do you think young people need in order to move from simply using digital platforms to actively shaping and creating within them? In other words, what do they need to take advantage of these opportunities? Over to you. Terren? I'm not sure if he's hearing me. Not sure what's happening. Terren, are you hearing me?
I'm not too sure if you all are hearing me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm hearing
Okay,
you
great.
now.
Okay, great.
Did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. Sorry
Okay,
about
great.
that.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm speaking on like a broader TNT point of view. I would say, like in my experience, I would say the student groups definitely helps with the opportunities that students get, and also with like stuff like this when it comes to forums as well, because it's one thing like you could learn something in a course, right? Like take for example with the Learn TT that the ministry is doing, that is they get points in my book for that. But I do think that to take more advantage of like the opportunities and stuff, of you can kind of move away from like just simply like you learn and you go, right? You do a little bit like more like apprenticeships in a sense, where your students learn with the intention of being kept. So they can take what they learn and already have the experience to go more, to grow further. And that's just was me when it comes to that question, anyways.
Okay, thank you, Terren. So what we've heard so far is that, the digital space offers, enormous potential for us young people, but, the opportunity does not automatically translate into participation. They are structural, they're economic, technical, and sometimes policy barriers that can prevent young people from accessing these opportunities. So I would like to turn now to the other side of the conversation. What is getting in the way? So I would like to start with Albert Daniels. So Albert, let's turn to the issue of meaningful participation. Young people from developing and underserved communities, they can face multiple barriers to engaging in internet governance, from limited connectivity and resources to a lack of awareness and how these processes work. So can you tell me what are some of the key barriers that continue to limit meaningful youth participation in internet governance, particularly for young people from developing and underserved communities? And how can organizations such as ICANN, together with regional partners, help to address these gaps? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gabby. And I will turn that around a little, because what we've been able to do in ICANN is reduce, if not remove, many of these barriers to participation. And I highly suspect that much of what is left is really in the hands of the choice of young people to participate. I'll give you an example and I'll explain what I mean. ICANN meets 3 times a year in one of the 5 different geographical regions. And all of these meetings are in person as well as hybrid. So again, as Chanel said, once you could hear my voice as a young person, you could participate in any one of these meetings. And in addition to that, if you are a newcomer, you can even go back to all the meetings and listen to some of the sessions, see how discussions took place, and learn about the topics and how you can actually participate. Now, you mentioned also in your earlier question, how can we work, how can ICANN work with regional organizations? And I'm going to mention several different things that young people can do. The first one is what's happening right now, taking advantage of regional engagement programs. The CTU has helped to facilitate this youth session, and there are many sessions like this around the Caribbean, so young people can access them. Of course, I know you need connectivity for that. Within ICANN, there is a very specific Next Gen program, which is geared towards university students who are studying in the area of IT and internet governance. And it's an application program. And once you are successful and chosen as a Next Genner, ICANN will facilitate the payment of your airfare, accommodation, and small stipend to attend an ICANN meeting and make presentations on your area of research as a young person. Similarly, there's a broader ICANN fellowship program, which is available to anybody, young or old, but including the young, which also is competitive. You apply, say how you are going to bring the benefits of participation back to your country, and once you are successfully chosen, then your airfare, accommodation, and small stipend is given. We have university outreach programs as well. And finally, within the ICANN spaces, we have established a small island developing states space for individuals from small island developing states. And I'll say to you, Gabby, that Chanel McPherson, who was on your previous panel, is a perfect and absolutely perfect example of participation by a young person in all of these programs. She participates, obviously, in this kind of regional engagement. She was an applicant and successful in participating in the ICANN Next Gen program. And then she graduated to being an ICANN fellow. And she actually attended one of the first SID spaces within the ICANN community. So if you wanted an example and you wanted proof that the barriers have been reduced to young people, then you have it right here in a panelist from the previous panel. So really and truly, it's over to the young people. They have to make the choice to learn about what is being discussed. There's a website, learn.icann.org, where you can take free online courses on all of the topics. And then they have to take the choice to actually participate in what's going on. So barriers have been reduced. It's really up to young people to take advantage of the opportunities.
Thank you, Albert. Thanks so much for that. And again, that highlights, that, meaningful participation requires more than just simply, inviting young people to the table. They also need the connectivity, the knowledge, the resources, opportunities to participate. And, it's important that organizations like ICANN and regional partners not only create spaces for youth engagement, but also help build that capacity and confidence. And also thank you for bringing the receipts with Chanel, definitely. Thank you. Now we move on to Jalen. So Jalen, we are seeing governments taking increasingly active measures to address concerns about young people's safety online. Australia has already implemented a minimum age of 16 for access to many social media platforms, while the UK has recently announced plans to introduce a similar restriction in 2027. So there's clearly a legitimate concern about protecting young people, but there's also a concern that restrictions, depending on how they are designed, could affect young people's access to information, to education, to communities and opportunities. So I want to ask you a question that does not necessarily have an easy answer, but how do we determine whether measures such as social media bans or age-based restrictions are genuinely protecting young people or unintentionally limiting their rights, access to information, education, and opportunity? And what should policymakers be weighing before deciding that restrictions is the right solution? Over to you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And I do totally agree that is a very hard solution, for the policymakers, but it's a necessary one. As you know, we see that young people are users of the internet, but we are also, persons that are affected significantly negatively by the internet as well too. So what I would say is that for policymakers, they shouldn't look at it as a protection versus rights situation, because we do deserve protection, but we also have rights as well to information, education, being able to express ourselves, etc. So whatever policy that government in the Caribbean is looking to do, it has to find a balance that matches the protection and the rights. And the harms, as I said, they're very real. We have cyberbullying, exploitation, scams, addiction, you name it, etc. And it's something that governments can't ignore. And as we go along, the generations younger than me and younger than you, they're going to be even increasingly involved in the internet. And if you're asking for more participation in the internet, this is something that governments need to look at. However, restriction would reduce exposure, because okay, well, you could say I'm taking off all the 16-year-olds off of the internet, off of Facebook. You can't go on Facebook or access Facebook. However, when you look at, for example, for me, I'm not a 16-year-old, but I use Facebook, to access the news. That's how I get news in terms of the world and what's happening in my country with respect to politics, etc. So if I'm a 16-year-old and I can't access Facebook, that restricts me from being able to access that sort of information. And we look at, for example, in terms of us connecting, Instagram, Discord, these kind of things, they do create meaningful communities. Look at the streamers, for example, iShowSpeed. He had a community behind him, and he was able to do that, through the internet. So whatever the governments do, it has to make sure that it finds a right balance between protection as well as the rights. And then you spoke about Australia. Australia, they have under 16 account restrictions, and I think that a lot of the focus has been, pushed towards in terms of what putting the responsibility not on the parents or the children, but putting the responsibility on, say, for example, Facebook, in terms of the ads that are being displayed, for example, or what kind of access that young people are supposed to have. So whatever conversations that Caribbean policymakers have, they have to involve as well what is being shown to them, or what is being shown to the young population from the social media platforms, and how the social media platforms can play a bigger role in terms of protection, and not necessarily just restricting or taking it away from young people. So I definitely would point policymakers to those examples in terms of Australia, the UK, and there's some other countries as well that are coming on stream as well. I know Antigua is a country that's looking at it. So I hope that they're looking at the data, the actual data, that there's actually models that are being put in place to look at it. So that's my 2 cents to the question, Gabrielle.
Thank you so much, Jalen. And I'd like to add that what comes through is that is protecting young people online cannot simply be about just restricting access. It also has to be about understanding what young people need to participate safely and really meaningfully in these digital spaces. So I go over to Andrew. I'd like to go over to Andrew. So, Andrew, we often speak about the growth of opportunities in technology and engineering, but access to those fields is not always equal, right? And young people from underserved communities may face barriers related to education, resources, mentorship, exposure, professional networks. So, from an IEEE experience, what are some of the key challenges young people face in entering and advancing in technology and engineering fields, particularly those from underserved communities? And how is IEEE working to create more inclusive pathways for young people to develop, to participate, and ultimately become leaders in technology? Over to you.
Yep, thank you very much, Gabby. So you kind of put the answer in the question, actually. So mentorship is a very, very key part. I think maturity of skill is what is the biggest barrier right now. Given everything that's happening in the world, I think people want a high skill worker, but they are there, but they aren't mature enough to actually go into the workforce and get it. So what the IEEE is trying to do is provide networking opportunities and mentorship to aid the youth in order to reach to that maturity, basically. And we also try to make it very, very accessible by making these sessions either in free, in person, and hybrid. So anybody could join or everybody can participate, basically. In terms, did I answer everything there? I think that was...
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew. So yes, the initiatives that you identified, especially the networking, or leadership opportunities, they're definitely important because, they help create, not just, entry points, but pathways for our youth to grow, to participate, and, to become leaders. So last but not least, Terren, so there's a growing tension between protecting young people from online harm and ensuring that young people have the freedom to participate in the digital spaces where they learn, build communities, and express themselves. So, what does a genuinely youth-centered approach to online safety look like? And perhaps even more importantly, should young people have a greater role in deciding where that balance between protection and participation should be drawn? Over to you.
So thanks for the question. And to be very honest, that's some question I've been thinking of for a while, actually. I would say that yes, in terms of the youth aspect, like youth, like all of us, should be more in taking part in this discussion when it comes to like how we should be protected. But I would admit also, to some degree, the education of it is more important because, like, to give like a personal example, like we all have some device that have parental controls, right? Right? As like, if I could do it, a lot of people just do it too, I am sure. Like, you could just like create like a different account, like putting like fake credentials and stuff, and you still have normal access to that, right? So even though the policy may be there, that okay, you have to be over 16 to use social media. There's no like real way to like distinguish that, unless if I were to think about it, unless like you use something like a national ID or something like that. So in terms of like the education, identity, freedom, expression, and as well, I would say for the expression, we simply in a sense. Let's see for 1 second. Yeah, in terms of the expression, I would say that you could simply, like, we don't want to get away from any of our freedoms at all. Well, we should be able to freely express ourselves. That's right. So I think that even though we are in the conversations, and kind of let, in a sense, kind of let it fall on deaf ears, in a sense as well. So we should absolutely just be mindful of what we do, but also not be afraid to like disregard what we want to do as well. So I feel like in that aspect, that's what I answer the question anyways.
Thank you, Terren. Yes, and just to add to your sentiments or to your response, as we think about online safety, the challenge is really finding the right balance between, protection, participation, and our freedom to engage meaningfully in the digital space. So, with that said, I would definitely close the panel for the interest of time. So I would like to say a sincere thank you to my esteemed panelists for sharing their insights, experiences, perspectives, throughout this panel. And your contribution has definitely added, real depth into the conversation. And, just to recap, a few themes stood out. The digital space offers enormous opportunities for Caribbean youth, but these opportunities must be accessible, must be meaningful and equitable. We also heard that meaningful participation requires more than just simply giving young people a platform. They need the skills, the resources, the networks, the confidence, the maturity even to contribute, lead, and shape decisions. At the same time, we cannot ignore the barriers that remain, from connectivity, affordability, to skills gaps and equal access to opportunities. And when it comes to online safety, protection, and empowerment should not be opposing goals. Young people should have safe digital spaces while still having a meaningful voice in shaping the policies and solutions that affect them. Ultimately, Caribbean youth should not simply be users of technology. They should be creators. We should be innovators, entrepreneurships, leaders, and really and decision makers shaping our digital future. So again, thanks again to our panelists, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of our forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Youth in the digital space, opportunities and barriers. Thank you so much. Actually, we invite you on stage for a photo op. The panelists, please turn your cameras on. Those of you online, turn your cameras on. And the camera guy will direct. There you go. All right. Some great conversations we're having this afternoon. Well, the next one, listen to this. The next panel discussion is titled From Clicks to Cash. I like the sound of that. Ching, ching, ching. Talk about that one. It focuses on the monetization of Caribbean content, pathways for jobs in the digital economy, and the associated barriers that are faced in the region. Furthermore, it will explore the practical ways in which creators have overcome the existing barriers and foster collaborative pathways to support the creation of jobs in the creative space. Here are the panelists. Miss Alyssa Bazinski, Project Officer, Grenada Office of Creative Affairs. She's here. We invite her forward. There she is. Mr. Joshua Andall, CARICOM Youth Ambassador. He's back with us. Okay, so Joshua wouldn't be with us. Okay, we're going to move on. Come right up. Yes. And Mr. Jerome McCabe, founder Ticket Caribbean. He's joining us remotely. Now, Mr. Marlon McCarthy and Ms. Shariah Mohammed, policy and research interns at the CTU, or the dynamic duo who will be your moderators for this panel discussion. Please welcome them.
Good afternoon. Well, good evening, everyone. Our persons are online and persons in Grenada. My name is Shariah Mohammed, and today I'll be one of your co-moderators for the panel From Clicks to Cash, Monetizing Caribbean Content Creation. And today I'm here with my co-moderator, Marlon McCarthy.
Hello, everyone. Marlon here. I'm also the policy and research intern at the CTU. I'm excited to start this discussion.
So let's begin. Due to the evolution and development of digital infrastructure and services, the economic landscape, public perception, and consumer needs have expanded, consolidating the presence of a digital economy and market. While the Western world has largely implemented an integrated e-commerce in most sectors, the Caribbean is undergoing its own digital transformation. Thus, the question is raised by individuals: how can we turn our creativity into sustainable wealth?
And that is our topic for today. As we seek to shed light on this question, it will be my esteemed pleasure to introduce both our panelists for today. They were already introduced, but let me add a little more to their bio. Having with us is Miss Alyssa Bazinski, Caribbean storyteller from Grenada, founder and member of the Grenada Book Festival, and author of Kala Dances Soca and Good Boy Milo. She balances her writing with her consultancy practice, Ali Biz Communications, with more than a decade worth of experience. And she's also a project officer for the Office of Creatives, Grenada.
And as mentioned, online, we have Mr. Jerome McCabe joining us all the way from the UK. He is the founder of Ticket Caribbean. He is also a full-stack software engineer at Evotix, and as well an independent sci-fi fiction writer of upcoming titles such as Excursion Through Time. So we have two writers on this panel today.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So Jerome, my first question for you in regards to content creation. It is often advised that to run a successful business, you should capitalize on a gap in the market. What's your experience founding Ticket Caribbean? How did you identify a need and find your niche in the digital economy? We can't hear you, Jerome.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Is it clear? Is it?
Yes, yes, it's clear.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. Shariah and Marlon, nice to meet you. Happy to answer your questions. Yeah, so in terms of like finding a gap in the market, to be honest with you, when I started Ticket Caribbean, it honestly just started as a dare at first from a friend. He was just like, you know, Jerome, why don't you make an app that's better than like Eventbrite, but like for Caribbean events? And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? So I just like basically started doing this as like a pet project on the side. And I didn't have any vision, anything like that. I was just doing it for fun. But as I kept building it and as I kept posting like on my stories, my friends were like, bro, this actually looks really good. You should actually really try and like capitalize on this. So that's when I started doing research. That's when I started looking into the niches. And being in the UK for all this time, I think what people like Caribbean people who move away would understand is that finding your community, like a Caribbean community, is very difficult, especially when you move abroad and you feel like you're not really at home. So I felt like making this app, especially in the context of being in the UK, it helped people who are also in the UK as well, Caribbean descent, find other Caribbean members. So not just like via WhatsApp, but we could find ongoing events that are happening near us. We could find events happening back home. So you'd rather just wait for your friend and them to tell you. So, that is basically how like I looked for like the gap in the market, so to speak. And I was also looking, I think sometimes it's not really just about the gap, but also looking at what is already done and how you could just make it better. So I was looking at apps like Eventbrite, apps like Meetup, Luma, all these type of event apps, and I was like, I can do better than them. I'm from the Caribbean, why not, you know? So I wanted to make something specifically for our community, for our Caribbean background, that not just like generic for a global scale, but really fine tunes what it means for a Caribbean event to look like on a application digitally. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you, Jerome. Sometimes the answer is really just right in front of you. And a follow-up question to that. A lot of the time, the word calculated risk is being thrown around when it comes to, our local entrepreneurs when you are given advice. What is your advice on, for the youth present today about taking calculated risk? What were the calculated risks you take founding Ticket Caribbean?
So I would say in terms of calculated risk, it really depends on how much you're willing to give. Like for me personally, I'm just the type of person that's like, I will just never give up. So like, no matter how you're feeling, no matter how down you're feeling, no matter how much people telling you can't do it, they don't see the vision, but you see in the vision. If it's taking you 5 years, if it's taking you 10 years, just don't give up, right? And risk as much as you are able to risk. Don't risk your mental health, don't risk your health for a vision, you know what I mean? But like, in terms of like calculated risk, I would say just don't give up, to be honest. Like, that's really the only advice I could really give. Like, just don't give up, no matter how you're feeling, no matter how low you're feeling, no matter how you feel like no one is going to believe in you. Just keep pushing and your vision will come true, whether in the eyes of yourself or in the eyes of other people.
That's a powerful response, CF Jerome. What I gathered is believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. And you said this started from just a idea. So I know a lot of the times people just wonder, when do we start as young people? When is the right time to get into this? And like you said, it's just from a idea. We should just start. Moving to you, Ms. Basinski. AI is making it easier and cheaper to create content, but it also raises a question about ownership and authenticity. How do you think Caribbean creators can use AI to amplify their work without losing the cultural identity that makes their content valuable?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the question. One of the things that technology makes so great is that we can have this panel with people from all over the world, but it still means that this is very awkward for me sitting down. I'm not going to lie, this is very awkward for me right here. So, let me take a breath. AI and how it impacts creatives and how Caribbean creatives can still retain authenticity and originality. And this is something that comes up in my space all the time. And I don't know if I have the best answer for it. Because in my field with writing, for example, we run short story competitions, and there's always questions and concerns about, is generative AI being used to produce these stories? And if it is being used, how can you really judge if this is the best of the Caribbean, if this is really portraying the best of the Caribbean has to offer? So it really is a difficult something that we have to confront, and we cannot keep shying away from it. One thing I will say, though, is that yes, AI tools make content creation a lot easier, but one of the things that we kind of getting lost is the why behind we are doing it. And so, for example, with the graphic design, it's so easy for us to just put in a prompt, we create a flyer for our business, create a flyer for our social media, but we don't understand the principles of the graphic design. We don't understand color psychology, for example. Why are we using these color choices to persuade people? Because that's the point of communication. One of the points of communication, to persuade, to inform, to educate. So we have to stay true to what is the why. What is the reason behind we are doing this? Are we just putting out content for the sake of putting out content? Or do we want to educate? Do we want to share our authentic Caribbean experiences with audiences around the world? And I think in an earlier presentation, one of the panelists, I believe it was Joshua, he spoke about, yes, AI has the capability to produce outputs, but it lacks that the depth and the soul that really and truly a Caribbean creative has. And so all of that to say, we have to make sure that we are staying true to what is the why, what is the reason we're doing what we're doing when it comes to telling stories, creating content.
Absolutely right. You know, maybe we as Caribbean persons may be underrepresented in these large models, and understanding that why factor, why are we actually, what are we looking for when we produce this material or use AI to produce that material? Mr. McCabe, as an indie writer, what advice would you give to the Caribbean creatives hoping to monetize their art on the digital market?
What advice would I give? I would probably say, like, start putting yourself, like, ship your version of your product early on before you even feel ready. Like, so like from a writer, like self-publishing, because I do self-publishing. So I mean, you don't need anybody's permission to start showcasing your work. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to wait until you have the perfect thing done. You don't need to wait for it to be finished. So I would say just get your stuff out there early on, get eyes on it, get opinions from other people, and don't just wait until you have the perfect product to start showcasing it. And also your identity, I would say, like, is your differentiator. So don't feel like, okay, somebody already did this, that means I can't do it. Like, you put in your own spin on it, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's fantasy. Yes, it exists, but you also put in your own spin on it, your own identity on it, and people would appreciate that. And basically, I would just say, you know, try and get on, my last bit of advice, I would say, try and get on platforms that you see people that are in the same field as you are on. So like, I know sometimes in the Caribbean, we might just want to stick to platforms that our friends use or maybe our colleagues, but we need to look at the spaces that the people that are also pursuing what we are pursuing, what platforms are they using? Maybe we need to get on those platforms as well, just to showcase our work, get in those type of groups, those type of social circles, those type of networking, you know, circles as well. So that's my advice I would give.
Wonderful, thank you. Again, just start, right? And get yourself into that group that's local to your talent. I love that. You know, personally, I struggle with actually starting. So I push back a lot of my tasks, waiting for the perfect timing to get this out and rolling. And mainly that is because I look for something unique. I want something that when I come to the table, this is the only thing that it has, right? The only unique version of it that it has. And I think I really take your advice on that. As a young person myself, there could be multiple people doing the same thing, but that means that there are multiple outputs of that product. All right.
Exactly.
Alyssa, how should Caribbean creatives monetize their art on the digital market? And also my apologies for the awkwardness of the room, you being there by yourself.
How can we monetize? Again, that's a question that comes up all of the time in our spaces. One of the questions when I started off blogging and taking blogging seriously as a travel blogger, I hated to answer the question of what are your rates? That question used to send me into a panic. How do I compare myself to people who are established in this industry, who've been doing this? How can we compare? But it takes a lot of studying. It takes, not studying books in a formal setting, but I mean researching the industry and paying attention to the trends, paying attention to the outputs, paying attention to what is happening in the industry that you want to get into, and also ensuring that your work, the work that you produce, is of a great quality that people will want to pay for. A lot of times we get the complaints, oh, well, businesses don't want to pay for my content. Have you taken a serious, critical look at the content that you are producing? Is it of a good standard? Is it of a good quality? Is it something that is aligned with the brands that you are trying to pitch? Because a lot of times people will pitch brands willy-nilly all over the place, And then we're like, but nobody wants to work with me, but your content does not align with their goals and their mission and their objectives. So you really have to take a closer look at the content that you are producing, and to ensure that it aligns and makes sense for the brands that you are trying to pitch. You also have to pay attention to the business aspect of content creation and monetizing, and understand the implications of monetizing your work. Do you own the rights to the work that you have produced? And this comes back to the AI conversation. If you are using generative AI to create your content, do you own the rights to it? Who owns the rights to it? Intellectual property is a huge part of the content creation, creative industry. So then you have to understand intellectual property. What are your tax obligations locally in Grenada, but also if you're pitching to brands in the US, do you have tax obligations as well? So there's a lot more that's involved than just saying, I want to make money doing YouTube videos. We also have a broader conversation. Earlier this year, my colleagues and I at Grenada Office of Creative Affairs, we participated in a trade and services consultation, because right now it is very difficult for Caribbean creatives locally to monetize streams on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, for example. So we have to come together as CARICOM to lobby these major corporations so that we can also benefit from the tremendous amount of money that is on the outside. I think that's it.
Ms. Bazinski, I could not have said it better myself. The way that you mentioned that we had to, one of the important skills, one of the things that stood out to me is the important skill of identifying your audience and the creative to identify who exactly they're trying to sell to, as well as the thing about, yes, you want to put a fair rate on your work, but you also have to put in the extra research to know what is a fair price to the consumer as well. You mentioned that you are a travel blogger, and that is an amazing segue into my next question. You have worn many different hats throughout your professional journey. In addition to establishing your own consultancy, as a creative, what was a challenge you had to overcome, and what lessons did you learn?
See one of my fellow creatives making eyes there. Jervis knows one of these struggles. One of the biggest challenges overcoming myself and the internal imposter syndrome that is, am I good enough? Can I do this? But also coming from a community, a society where, yes, we are inherently creative people, but creativity was not promoted and pushed as a viable career choice. So while I have been a creative person my entire life, it was not, and I was encouraged to pursue creativity as a hobby on the side, it wasn't necessarily promoted as this is what you should do when you grow up. So what do you want to be when you grow up? I never said writer, even though deep down that's what I wanted to say. And so that in itself was a big challenge of changing that mindset personally, but also to my audience, that you can be a creative and still have a very successful career. And that's why I'll also plug Grenada Office of Creative Affairs, because this is what we are working really hard to do, to establish a favorable environment in Grenada where creatives can thrive, where creative businesses can thrive. So we are part of that push to turn creativity from just a passion into something that can be profitable through policy, through awareness, through capacity building, through economic incentives, so that we really can push the creative economy forward. But yes, the biggest challenge was really myself and getting over that imposter syndrome.
I feel like a lot of young people could relate to the imposter syndrome point that you raised. I bet everybody online and in the room have experience imposter syndrome at some point. Also, the point that you raised about creativity. Yes, we are very creative as people, as Caribbean people, but it's also not put at the forefront or not promoted as a viable or sustainable way to gain income or have a living. And, when I was in high school, I wish that, I was more aware of the different avenues, or I wish that we had those same opportunities. But now, with everything changing, I hope that the youth today could realize that there's a lot more opportunities now with how everything has developed. So, in the interest of time, I am going to present some rapid fire questions. These are for either or both of our panelists. Whoever wants to tackle it, you could go ahead. So firstly, if you could identify one Caribbean asset or industry that we seriously under-monetize, what would it be and why?
Film. Oh, I have to say why. Okay, so film. We have so many great stories here within the Caribbean region that we should be telling, that we can be telling, and not just film, animation, multimedia, our folk tales, our characters, our romance stories. I would love a Caribbean Christmas romance movie to come out from the Caribbean. But yes, film.
Mr. McCabe, Jerome?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, No, to be honest, yeah, we have like so much of creativity in the Caribbean. I feel like we don't really push that part of our society that much. Like we kind of suppress it a bit. We kind of focus on finance or engineering, but we don't really focus on the creative arts. So I mean, seeing a lot more Caribbean animators, especially locally, would be pretty great to see. Pretty fun to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, music as a creative made it out and in the public, international, globally, right? This is the second person I'm hearing that said film. Film we have as a great art piece in the Caribbean, and I know several, I think, international movies were shot here in the Caribbean, but weren't accredited for, or at least they were in the fine print. Another rapid fire question. The Caribbean is relatively small, but our diaspora at large is global. Should Caribbean creators be thinking global from day one, or should we market to our region? Either of you could go.
I don't know if this might be controversial or not, but I think that we should be thinking global from day one. Because reason is we deserve to be on a global scale. We have great talent, and the only thing that we really lack, and I would say, is just a bit of infrastructure and supporting that talent, which is why a lot of skilled Caribbean people leave home and they never come back. And it's because the global scale has more infrastructure to support their talents. So that's why I would say, like, back home in the Caribbean, I would say we definitely need to think on a global scale, because we can't put ourselves in a box of what we could achieve compared to like what the world could achieve. We are part of the world. We need to be global. We need to show everybody that we could do things just like them or even better. So I would say globally from day one.
I agree, but I will also add that we can still think globally without neglecting us. We can still create for us, and in creating for us, we're doing it that still has global appeal, that still has is attractive for global audiences, but intentionally it is still for us, made by us, that other people can enjoy.
I 100% agree with both of you, Ms. Brzezinski and Mr. McCabe. Molly, you want to say something?
I agree as well. We should make that content for us and put the Caribbean on a global footing. Yeah.
Especially uplifting Caribbean creatives' voices and Caribbean voices in general in the stories that we tell, even if it's with the help of or the expertise of regional or international stakeholders. But yes, I could not have answered that question better myself. In the interest of time, I just want to take this moment to field any questions we have from the audience, whether that be online or in person in Grenada. I just ask Alyssa to help me for the persons online in case they have a question.
We do have a question from the audience. Mr. Gabrielle.
Right. My question pertains to getting the money in. With the musicians, that is easy. They go, they do their concerts, what have you. But for a creative here, a writer, for example, who decides to put their work on Amazon, we know we have some serious challenges getting the money in. So what are the recommendations, the advice in terms of how young people can overcome that and what we should probably be doing as a Caribbean community to address the issue? Because it is very easy to get the work up on Amazon, for example, but it is hell to get the money into our islands.
It really is. For that Amazon specifically, did you see the email that they sent out that you can now register your local bank account? Yeah, so hopefully that we're moving in the right direction. But one of the conversations that we were having earlier this year with that same trade and services was the need that Grenada, especially, the individual islands were so small. So we do need to approach this as a block. We do need to have unified voices. And so for the youth, to keep engaging your policymakers and in discussions like these to the NTRC and other regulatory bodies to advocate for that, listen, this isn't something that we can keep pushing down the road. You know the saying, you keep kicking the can down the road. We have to address this now because we just keep delaying. Yes, it's a concern, but you have to demand action. And the more of us who are demanding action, I hope they will have better results.
Yeah, couldn't say it any better. I know we're pressed for time, but I'll just probably say like a lot of the time, these foreign companies, they don't really like, basically they don't really like doing finance stuff with like Caribbean countries because they see us as basically like a threat to their system. So they kind of focus on like other first world countries when it comes to like doing payouts and stuff like that. So like these things, it's not really like we can give strong advice on how to even approach that because Amazon itself needs to like actually allow, you know, easy facilitation for like Caribbean people to get paid out into their local bank accounts and stuff like that. Which is why maybe just having like a push for more our own thing. So like if we were to like make like our own platform for like authors or something back in the Caribbean, like a whole Caribbean conglomerate of like author software or something like that, and then we do our own payouts, something like that, because we depend so much on foreign platforms a lot of the time. And understand, yes, Amazon is a big conglomerate, it's very popular, a lot of people are going to be on it, but these type of problems are beyond what an individual could do in terms of like how they handle finances and how they trust certain countries in terms of doing payouts and cash flows and all these type of things. But yeah, I would say I would want to build like a whole Caribbean like platform just for like us to use, have our own authors on it. We do our own payouts, we monetize it how we want to monetize it, and it's like a Caribbean region thing instead of relying so heavily on foreign platforms.
There's a Caribbean audiobook platform that was released this year, late last year, called Audio. So if anybody was interested in listening to Caribbean audiobooks, that's a great platform to check out. And for the authors to put your books on audio and get paid out from the Caribbean platform.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions? Anyone online, in person? If not, I have a question.
None online.
Yeah,
No?
go ahead.
All right. This will probably be my closing question. If we meet again in 5 years from now, what needs to have changed for us to confidently say that the Caribbean has built a sustainable industry around the creation and monetization of Caribbean content? What will that future look like?
We meet again in 5 years.
Maybe when the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum is at 27 years. I would like to see that.
Well, one, we'd have addressed the issue of the Amazon payouts and Shopify payouts and all the other monetization of the platforms, but also we will see the not just the emergence, but thriving Caribbean platforms, streaming platforms for our films and our TV shows and our shorts, thriving platforms for our Caribbean audiobooks and books and just creative commodities. And so a thriving community digital space for creatives. So that's the platform so that we can purchase and access and enjoy our creative goods, and also so that our creatives can earn a sustainable income. That's what the next 5 years would look like.
Yeah, I agree as well. Yeah, so basically I would just say infrastructure and ownership. So if we have proper infrastructure, so our creators could get local payments, proper distribution, proper discovery tools built, for our like ecosystem, and proper ownership as well. So like we own what we create, So Caribbean creators will have like their own platforms, actually keeping value within the context of the Caribbean. And instead of it just flowing to foreign platforms and getting lost in the system, it would be great that if we could have that own collection of data for ourselves. So I would just say infrastructure and ownership. We already have the talent. We just need support.
Right. I believe there are a lot of youth advocates and the adults in the room that would help us build this sustainable future, especially for Caribbean creatives. With that being my last question, you have any other questions, Sharia?
No, I have no other questions. I
Okay.
believe we are done.
We would like to take this time to thank our panelists, Mr. Jerome McCabe and Ms. Alyssa Basinski. Thank you so much for attending and preparing this conversation centered around content creation and the creative spirit of our region, enabling avenues of wealth generation for our Caribbean young entrepreneurs. We wish to thank the audience online and in Grenada and enjoy the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. From clicks to cash, monetizing Caribbean content creation. Please keep your cameras on, co-hosts online and the panelists online, and join Basinski right here for a photo op. Have they left us? There you are. Yes, it's time for the photo op. Thank you very much. One of the panelists said something very, very important. It stays with me. Jerome McCabe. I'm going to quote him. He says, "You don't need to have the perfect product to showcase your work. Start somewhere and build on it." Do you agree? Yes, powerful indeed. The next panel is going to focus on from connectivity to opportunity, empowering Grenadian youth to shape a safe, inclusive digital future. What does this mean for our young people in Grenada? Here are the panelists. Ms. Zinzi Noel, disability advocate, United Nations Youth Advisory Group. She's joining us remotely. All the other panelists are here in person, and they are Mr. Michael Lambert, IT educator and Speaker of the House in Grenada's National Youth Parliament. Mr. Kishan Paul, IT District Officer, Ministry of Education, and Ms. Tariq Samuel, educator, disability advocate, and community advocate. Please come forward. To take a deep dive into this very important topic, I invite the moderator, Ms. Tia Cummins, consultant at the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission.
Good afternoon. Hello? Okay. Wonderful.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this panel. I would like to acknowledge the youth online and in person. I would like to recognize the following post-secondary institutions in the room with us: New Life Organization, University of the West Indies Global Campus, St. George's University, and T.A. Marichaud Community College. Today, we are joined by a remarkable group of individuals. These persons are making impactful contributions within their communities, across Grenada, and beyond. Let's start this conversation. What does digital empowerment mean to you? And what does that look like in practice for our Grenadian youth? Keyshawn?
Thank you, Tia. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. From my perspective, I think that digital empowerment has a lot to do with someone's ability, capacity, and competence in terms of engaging technologies, the internet, web, etc. I like to think about it from this perspective. Facebook is an online platform. Someone might go onto Facebook to scroll, to doom scroll as we call it. Someone else might go onto Facebook to actually promote a business or to find opportunities or be able to do content marketing, etc. So I think that there's a scale between these two people. And as you progress along that scale, that reflects an increased level of digital empowerment. That's my perspective.
Tariq?
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure being here. For me, digital empowerment means opportunity, inclusion, and independence. It opened doors for people to learn, to connect, and to participate. It allows us to be flexible, and of course, it gives us options. Now people can work online, study online, make money online, purchase, do whatever online, right? It also promotes inclusion and independence. For someone who is visually impaired like myself, before reading a book was a challenge, but now, because of technology, AI tools, talkbacks, voiceovers, I can access that information because of technology. So to me, that is what technology means.
Micah?
Right, so good afternoon, everyone. For me, digital empowerment is more than just having internet access or owning a device. I would say that it's, just as how Mr. Paul stated, it encompasses having the skills, the confidence, and the opportunity to use the technology, right? And just from I would say, because I'll try to keep it a little short, just from I would say, a practical point of view, as an IT educator, as an educator at my school, I've seen some of my students utilize, the AI, and I believe we had a panel discussion earlier, first panel discussion on AI, and I've seen some of my students use AI to help them to build different little, I would say, programs for themselves. Additionally, in this room here, I know of at least 2 individuals who have used the technology to really boost or create, I would say, their businesses. One that, and I believe many of us, Grenadians, we would know Paradise, and a next one who is heavily involved in blockchain technology. Both individuals have used the technology, and they didn't just succumb to being, I would say, consumers only, but they utilize the technology to really empower, and I didn't want to really use over the same word, but empower themselves or to boost themselves forward. So that is how I would really go about saying.
Zinthi?
For me, I see digital empowerment through the lens of disability. Technology can remove barriers that sometimes prevent persons with disabilities from fully participating in society, whether it's through accessible digital platforms, social media, online education, or tools that allow us to work independently. Technology can give people greater control over their lives. I believe digital empowerment is ultimately about turning access into opportunity and making sure that no one is left behind in the digital space.
Thank you. Share your perspectives on the role that government, private sector, community organizations, and youth themselves play in building a safe and inclusive digital future. I will invite the Speaker of the House in our Youth Parliament. Go ahead, Micah.
All right, so for me, I will say that the government must move beyond just connectivity and devices. We are, in fact, grateful for it. I know that in recent years, there have been, I would say, initiatives to really bridge some of this. However, I think that a bit more can be done, right? This may sound a bit weird, but I was truly grateful for COVID, right? I think COVID really brought about a whole change in the tech industry. During the COVID period, I'm not sure if it was offered in other countries, so I don't want to just jump ship and say something that I can be corrected for it. However, I know that during the COVID period, we had the Commonwealth of Learning partnering with Coursera to offer different courses, right? And I was able to learn quite a bit and to really whet my appetite, I would say, in the field of data analytics, data science, and the likes. Now, from a youth parliament perspective, I would say that with the youth parliament, it more or less hinges on how much we interact with or how much we're able to, I would say, include our youth in the decision-making processes and all of that. So that is just my little tidbit for right now.
Thank you. Keyshawn, can you speak to us through the lens of the Ministry of Education and provide one or two examples in your response?
Okay. I want to start first of all by, expressing a bit of a relief that the government did take initiative years ago to get on that role of ensuring online safety by first in 2013 introducing the Electronic Crimes Bill. And I don't think people appreciate how important this was for our society, because in times past, something happens to someone and it's spread through the entire internet. It goes from phone to phone, from person to person, and it was quite easy for someone to just, spill someone's information, personal effects, etc., online, and there was no repercussions. And with the introduction of the Crimes Bill, now there was a level of accountability that persons can take, and there was some law to go to hold people accountable for doing things that would ultimately affect or destroy someone else's life. Following this, 10 years later, it's a stretch, but it's still progress in the grand scheme of things. We have the Data Protection Act that was assented in 2023. It came into law, and what this did is that it said to society, hey, everybody has a right to their own data. Everybody, no matter what you do, once you go online, you produce data. You go on Google, you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you go pay tax online, you produce data. And like the GDPR would have done for Europeans,
we're saying that, listen, Grenadians have a right to decide what happens to their data. And that doesn't just go for seniors. It goes for youth and younger persons that have a guardian over them. So I think generally that in that case would have been the government showing you that we are making progress towards ensuring that people can protect their data, have rights over their data, and are able to use it however they see fit or prevent it from being used by whoever they see fit.
Tariq, chime in here.
So, speaking from a educator or a special educator point of view, I think the government specifically is going into the right direction when it comes to technology. Our students are moving from maybe braillers, recorders, magnifiers, deaf enhancement devices to now talkbacks, read out loud, laptops, tablets, any other assistive technology. So we are moving into the right direction. But the government also has the responsibility to build digital infrastructure, ensure that everyone has the access. And I will also speak on the community organizations aspect, because I'm part of a lot of organizations. I could say we understand what the people need the best, because that is who we serve. So I believe we are responsible to ensure that those resources and programs reach persons, especially persons who may particularly be left behind. So yes.
Thank you. Zinzi, can you extend on Tariq's comment regarding ensuring that we all work together so that no one is left behind?
Okay. But before I say that, I also want to point out from my experience through the UN Youth Advisory Group, I've also had the opportunity to engage with some of UNESCO's work around media and information literacy in the Caribbean, including discussions around misinformation, hate speech, content creation, and digital skills. But at the same time, there's a gap I think we need to pay closer attention to in Grenada, and it is who we are actually reaching with these opportunities. Someone may know how to use TikTok or Instagram, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the digital skills to identify misinformation, use AI responsibly, market themselves professionally, or even earn an income using the skills to earn an income. And I think persons with disabilities are particularly important here. We need to make sure we're not only reaching young people who are already within the education system. As Tariq was talking, there are technologies available within the education system, but are persons outside of the education system having that same exposure to the technology and the digital skills? So I see community organizations as a bridge, an important bridge to that. We can identify those gaps, reach people where they are, and connect them with training and opportunities. But we also need the government, the private sector, and regional and international organizations to help create the infrastructure, training, and pathways into actual employment, entrepreneurship, and remote work. Because digital inclusion shouldn't stop at teaching someone how to use the internet and at the schools. The real question is, can they use it to learn, participate, own, and build a better future for themselves?
Thank you. The Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum is one example where our youth lead the design and delivery of the forum. In Grenada, The NTRC, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Ministry of ICT, hosted the Girls in ICT Day. One of the components was the introduction of an AI-driven solution project whereby girls within our secondary schools were invited to design an AI solution that would solve a real-world issue within their communities under the pillars: agriculture, the blue economy, health, gender-based violence. Oftentimes, many of our young people don't get the opportunity to design programs. They are handed such programs. To our panelists, how can we move from designing initiatives for young people to designing initiatives with young people, ensuring their voices and perspectives help shape the decisions that affect them?
Let me start off by saying that, again, I must commend the progress that we've made thus far. We've done quite a bit to use technology, especially for the Ministry of Education's perspective, to enhance learning, teaching and learning. We've introduced a number of initiatives in schools, a number of technologies, whether it be from drones, the use of laptops for ebook use, etc. Even through the CARICOM project, the UCS Swipe Safe for Kids. This is some of the initiatives that government and the Ministry of Education have collaborated with other stakeholders to implement. And we've seen what is possible when we're able to introduce things to youth to assist, support, and enhance their ability to produce some form of desirable output. To connect to this bridge, I can remember I was doing a bit of work for CXC at one of our secondary schools, and I had a really brief conversation with a group of young men, very intelligent young men, by the way, at the upper level in their schools. And in the discussion, one of them randomly indicated, well, so how is it that we don't have the opportunity to say what can be implemented in a school space or to influence that? And the discussion got around to them feeling as though, a lot of money is being spent, they're seeing things happen, they're seeing initiatives being brought for them to assist with, to direct them, but a lot of them felt as if they didn't have the opportunity to create and implement some form of initiative. And in doing my research, I noticed that there are some countries that in the creation of their annual revenue and expenditure, they implement something called a participatory budget. And what this simply means is that in the scenario of students can come up with a project that they think is viable for their educational environment. Mm-hmm. And then whether it's through the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Youth and Sports, etc., a portion of funds is allocated in the budget so that a group of students, whether they be identified as a group or as a panel, etc., can direct how that funds is implemented. And in my research, I've observed that there are quite a lot of useful and innovative ideas that kids have, that if given the right finance and resources, stakeholder engagement and guidance, these things could be implemented. I mean, who knows best about what they need than the person who needs? So in this case, I think in the event a participatory budget can be implemented where students or a group of representatives from the student body can say what happens to this particular amount of money coming out of the budget. So that, I think, will have them more involved, and they can see that the fruits of their labor is being adhered to, persons are listening to them, and it's not just the seniors implementing, but they are driving the implementation and the ideation as well.
Michael?
Right. After listening to Keshawn, I do in fact agree with quite a bit that he said. I must say that consultation does not equate to participation, right? And many of our programs here in Grenada, and maybe by extension the region, you see that our Seniors are the ones that would often create a program and dish it out and say, okay, young people, this is for you. Take it, and yeah, that's all you have to do. Just work with what we have. Whereas we should have our young people involved before the program is designed, right? Rather than sending the prototype or the design out, we should have our young people within or at the start of it. So whereby our youth would, they would identify the problems, they would design the solutions, and they would come up with the implementation, and then at the end of it, they can see, well, watch now. This worked, this didn't work. So, and then with the advice of, well, I would say our seniors, right? And that way we have proper collaboration going on. Now, I kind of want to boast about my school a bit, right? Whereby recently we started having our students, they're able to, I would say, come up with some of their own clubs that they want to start, right? So one of the clubs that we initially had, we had an environmental-based club. Now, one of the students, he felt led to not just have an environmental-based one, but one that specifically targets climate action, right? And he went through the proper framework and he was able to start such a club. Aside from that, he was even able to go on to, I think it was in Jamaica for a recent conference and all of that. Now, another club that was started or is in the pipework is one that you don't really see here in the Caribbean. And one of the students, he stated, and he was like, he came up to me one day and he was like, "Sir, a lot of the students oftentimes feel, I would say, depressed or they feel down at school. What if we instituted or what if we brought in something like a school mascot, right? Maybe, or a school pets." And I was like, well, that's not really something the Caribbean does do. But go at it. And I can't say that, well, we haven't had a discussion since then because he kind of brought it up around the ending of the school year when final exams going on and everything. So hopefully when school reopens next week, we'd be able to have that discussion and to see where we can further bring it and everything. So, yeah.
Zinzi?
Yeah, I think if we are serious about moving from designing initiatives for young people to designing with young people, we have to be intentional about whose voices we are actually including. For me, that means making sure young people with disabilities are not only consulted, but are involved in the design, implementation, and evaluation of programs from the very beginning. Too often, accessibility is considered after a program has already been created, when we should be asking from the start, can a young person with disability participate in this? Can they contribute equally? What barriers might prevent them from being in the room? And we have to recognize that saying we invited young people doesn't necessarily mean we heard from a diverse cross-section of youths. If the space isn't physically accessible, if the information isn't available in accessible formats, or if participation depends entirely on technology that some young people cannot access, then some voices are still being excluded. So I think meaningful youth participation requires us to remove those barriers before we ask young people to participate. And also, don't simply create a seat for young people at a table. Make sure the table is accessible to them and then allow them to help decide what gets put on that table.
Thank you. Tariq.
As Zinzi said, give us an accessible seat on the table, but also give us the opportunity to lead. And as Micah said, instead of just creating the program and inviting us or asking us to participate, give us the tools and the resources to create or implement that program ourselves. Because at the end of the day, young people can relate and understand to young people. So just give us the opportunity and we can surely show you our ideas, and they are great ideas.
Wonderful. And we have so much confidence in our youths. Our next question. There are several decision makers and leaders in the room with us and also online from various sectors. Provide to our panelists, provide one recommendation to them as to strengthen Grenada's digital future and expand opportunities for young people. I'm going to repeat. Provide one recommendation to our decision makers on how we collectively can strengthen Grenada's digital future and expand opportunities for our young people. Please be specific in your recommendation.
Check. Go ahead. Okay, so from my experience, I would say that quite a bit of our young persons, whether you take them as teenagers, young adults, even below the age of 12, are very competent in a number of skills that reflect some degree of digital empowerment. I think it might sound redundant or vanilla, but guidance is very, very important. And let me explain why. So take, for example, I think that even in government, initiatives should have a stronger campaign. So let me take, for example, that Swipe Safe for Kids. We need to make sure that even though young persons are online, or even though our young adults or colleagues are online, that they know how to act online. They know what the pros, the cons are, they know what the challenges are. And I know my colleague, Mr. Gabrielle, does a really good job of ensuring that persons know what's going on online, whether it's through cybersecurity issues, whether it's through scamming, exposing scammers. I think that once they're online, we need to make sure that they are aware of the challenges that are there. And when I say aware, I mean critically aware. Not just we know that there are persons online scamming, but we know that if we come upon these issues, we are able to, there's a particular way we can resolve it. If there is no way of action in a resolution, then they themselves might fall prey to a lot of things that may show up online. And being in the AI sphere myself, I can tell you, I can record someone's voice for 2 minutes. And after that 2-minute recording, I can pass it through a particular software and have that person say something in video as if they were that particular person. And some persons may know this, but while you're scrolling online, is that information with you? Are you cognizant that as I'm navigating the virtual space, these things are happening? Or am I going to adhere to my first response? You see this happen? Oh my gosh, share. You see this happen? Oh my gosh, throw it on my status. We need to encourage ourselves and persons in our young sphere to be critically aware while navigating the digital space.
Tariq, and Tariq, I would like you to comment specifically from your seat at the table in terms of a community leader and disability advocate.
Right. So my recommendation would be create an opportunity so that young people can come up with their ideas and present that idea, their own ideas. For example, I remember in school, I was in Young Leaders, Junior Achievers, and the concept was young people will come up with an initiative, put that initiative in action, then come and present it, and the best will be selected and represent Grenada, or the initiative will continue. So I believe we can create or develop a program like that, where young people has the opportunity, whether it is youth-led organizations, youth leaders, any young person can come up with an initiative and present that initiative, whether it is in ICT or any area, to be honest, we can categorize it, where they can present their ideas, and the best idea that would be selected can be funded and be provided with resources. And that young person can be active in implementing that initiatives. So that is one recommendation I have.
Michael.
Right, so I would like to add on a bit to what Mr. Paul stated, right? He spoke quite a bit about the guidance. And aside from the guidance, I would say that, well, to the decision makers, that we should create I would say a proper pipeline. So whereby we have access, and I must say that there is some access right now, but we move from access to training and then to opportunity. And with this opportunity, we would connect educators, people that can do the technical training. We would have internships, employment, maybe even helping persons to become entrepreneurs. We have mentorships going on. And all of this would just help our young people to not, after completing training, to have no clear, I would say, trajectory, or to not have any clear step moving forward, but rather, upon finishing their training, these young people, they know, okay, this is the next step that I'm going to, right? So I would say that this is not just a call for government or private sectors. I would say schools need to be involved. Businesses, I would say the home, right? The home needs to be involved as well. So that at the end of it, our young people can actually reach where they need to reach, and not just learn a digital skill or a skill in general, but rather learn a digital skill or a skill that can help them, I would say, economically at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Zinzi?
My one recommendation would be make digital inclusion for young people with disabilities a deliberate part of Grenada's digital development strategy, not an afterthought. If we are investing in digital skills, training, entrepreneurship, and employment opportunities for young people, those opportunities need to be designed with accessibility from the beginning. That means accessible training platforms, assistive technologies, accessible digital content, and opportunities for young people with disabilities to develop the same technical and entrepreneurial skills as their peers. And I think we also need to move beyond asking, can young people with disabilities access this program? We should be asking, what do we need to change so that they can fully participate and benefit from it? Because digital technology has the potential to remove many of the physical and social barriers persons with disabilities face. But if accessibility isn't built into the foundation, technology can simply create new barriers.
Thank you. So as we wrap up this insightful discussion, I'm going to open the floor for questions as well as comments, mindful of our time. Before the young people chime in, I would like to invite our decision makers to comment on the question that where our panelists provided recommendations. Can you share your perspectives on the recommendations provided? The floor is open to the decision makers. Go ahead.
Not necessarily a decision maker in Grenada, but just to mention that the CTU has had, over the past several years, a program in terms of ICT for persons with disabilities that we've incorporated into our road shows and into our annual ICT Week program. And we are continuing with that. And this year, in fact, we plan to include an approach along the lines that Zinzi mentioned towards the end there, inclusion by design. You know, whereas before we were looking to, or we had been looking to enhance the capacity of persons with disabilities to use and benefit from ICT. The approach that we are looking to take now is a little more positive in terms of empowering our persons with disabilities as full members of the productive economy in the country. So it's sort of like inclusion by design rather than remedial. So, so we take on board some of the comments that we have in terms of empowerment. Thank you.
So thank you, Team Grenada. So I am going to invite persons from the audience, our young people, youth, to comment on this recommendation or any other part of the discussion, as well as ask your questions, and then I will invite the online audience.
I don't think I qualify as youth based on age, but I can speak to a couple of the recommendations, and especially when you look at online safety. Fortunately for us, the bad actors, they do not care whether you have a disability or not. And what that means, and I said fortunately, because what that means is when it comes to how we approach security, we have to cater for everybody, right? Because everyone is a potential a victim, a target, right? So I think when it comes to the inclusivity in safety, this is something that we do consider, albeit we know there are some gaps because there are certain tools that, you know, certain groups use that how you secure it is completely different from what is used by the mainstream users of those technologies. But I just wanted to plug that in there because we need to appreciate that when it comes to security, no one is off limit. Kishan spoke about our data and data protection. Again, every one of us in here, those online as well, we have data that must be protected. And the people who think they have nothing that the bad actors want, you may be surprised that your identity may very well be more valuable to them than the people who are well known. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move online. Any questions or comments online? If not, there is a hand in the in-room, in the audience in-room. Kindly go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Cummins. Very great recommendations to the panel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abigail Ellis. I would like to suggest firstly that we tackle data poverty. I know we're talking about the digital expansion, but one of the things I was speaking to my youthful friend on the side of me about is the access, public Wi-Fi access. If we're talking about inclusion, I do know there are a number of rural communities throughout the trial and states of Grenada, CARICOM, and PT Martinique that still does not have access to Wi-Fi, and so that in itself is a challenge. But when we speak of digital illiteracy, I do think that we need to take it a step back and tackle literacy on a whole, because you're moving from just literacy to digital literacy is an entire jump in itself. And I think we're also going to be missing a certain generation, especially for the people born in the, well, no offense to you, the 80s and 90s. There are a lot of individuals who, of course, we know the educational level that existed then, and not everyone having access to secondary school, tertiary education, etc. So if we're going to tackle digital literacy, I think we need to look at it as tackling literacy on a whole. I know the Ministry of Education is here, but you're only representing one demographic, which is the people in school. What of the people outside of school? What of the parents to the children in the school, right? So it really had to take an all-inclusive approach. Love the conversation. Would love to see us move from conversation beyond talk to actual implementation and rollout. And I know the first thing you said, Ms. Cummins, which I feel offended about, you asked for the decision makers to speak first. I do believe everybody in this room is a decision maker. The mere fact that we were invited and I'm sitting here speaking means I don't hold as much power as my colleague to the left, but we're all decision makers in this room. Thank you, that's my contribution.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ellis. So I wanted to put some pressure on the senior decision makers in the room. So the senior decision makers in the room, that was a little pressure there for you. We are all leaders in due course. We have been doing some amazing work right here in Grenada. Let's continue the conversation after this session and over the next few days as we wrap up. Is there a question? Oh, yes, please go ahead.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I will comment. I've been here today. I'm from the US. I have enrolled my daughter into SGU, and spending some time here, happened to see this particular conference, and I am so delighted to know it actually brings my heart joy. The kind of work that I do, I work in FEMA, which is disaster recovery and resilience. And so a lot of the things that are happening in this conversation brings my heart joy that you guys are having this kind of conversation here. I kind of told some of the decision makers, senior decision makers, that all day I have been sending out emails and text messages to my team because most of the work that we do is globally. And having this conversation today, especially toward the youth, and hearing a lot of these things come back to some of the work that we have shaped in other countries and in and around the world, I wanted to hear one other word, and that's innovation and entrepreneurship. You guys have so many great tools and so many great conversations that are going forward, and so much pride and ownership in the work that you guys are doing here. And I am really excited to say to you that we're having the same conversation in the US. So what COVID did for us is allow us to slow down and appreciate each other. But we should not lose that momentum by inviting each other into the rooms that we're invited in through technology and telecommunication, but then having the real partnerships and conversations that keeps us expanding from 100 years from now.
Thank you for those comments. So I can comment here. In terms of innovation, between April and July of this year, we hosted or we collaborated, that is the NTRC, Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Education, for our Girls in ICT Day. And one of the key components was our AI Innovation Challenge, whereby we invited our students, girls within the secondary school system, as I mentioned, to design an AI solution for their community. So they selected their pillar. We identified the pillars of the orange economy, the blue economy, health, agriculture, and gender-based violence. And their pitches were amazing. They pitched on the 10th of July, and the work that they did, incredible. We are so proud of our young persons, and these are individuals within forms 1 to 4 that came out there, they brought it, and they did such an amazing job. And I want to acknowledge the presence of our minister. Actually, at that pitch competition, the minister gave the commitment that the government of Grenada will be working with the top 5 schools to develop their ideas. So that's the AI Innovation Challenge Minister. So here we are collectively creating that pipeline. Just to wrap up my point in terms of innovation, we're so proud of the work that we are doing across the different sectors and our stakeholders. As another innovative introduction, under that same Girls in ICT Day program, we ran a pilot whereby we selected 3 primary schools. We invited 5 students per school, and they came in at the grades of 4 and 5, and they did an innovation workshop. So we are all about innovation here in Grenada, and we are creating that pipeline. We are identifying the talent as early as possible, and we look forward to strengthening partnerships throughout Grenada, including our sister isles, as well as the Caribbean region and beyond. So as we end the conversation, very meaningful, I am now going to invite our panelists to leave with us one key message. What do you want us to leave this afternoon session with? One key message. Please keep your answer to 1 minute maximum, given the time. One key message. There we go.
So, for me, I will say let us be open-minded and excited for the opportunities that technology can give us, right? Because if it wasn't for technology, well, I would still be up here. But technology definitely made it easier for me to be up here and speak with confidence because of my tablet. I'm going to show you. I don't know if you guys can see. You see, I can have different colors. I can zoom in, zoom out. And because of technology, I am able to do that. And I will end with saying, technology creates an inclusive society. So let us be open and excited for it.
Micah.
Right, so for me, I would say that the Grenadian youth, we already have talent, creativity, and ideas, right? However, I would also say that connectivity, while it is important, connectivity alone is not empowerment. So young people, we need, one, the skills, but we also need the mentorship, the experience, the opportunity, and we need to have a voice when it comes to decision making, right? And this would not, or this should help us to really push I would say, a digital-centered Grenada forward, right? We are not here just to, I would say, inherit what our forefathers did, because our forefathers, and I know I have to keep it to a minute, our forefathers basically would have done papyrus, right? And we are here to really generate what the future entails, And to do that, we cannot just be users of, I would say, the future, but we need to actively create what we want for that future. So that is just my little takeaway for this afternoon.
Zinzi?
I would say that we cannot talk about a digital future for Grenadian youth while leaving young people with disabilities behind. Digital technology has the potential to remove barriers that have traditionally limited our participation in education, employment, entrepreneurship, and even decision making. But that only happens if accessibility and inclusion are built into our digital future from the beginning and not added as an afterthought. So as we build, innovate, and invest in Grenada's digital future, I want us to ask one simple question: who might be left out? And then make sure they are not. Because a digital future is only truly successful when every young person has the opportunity to be a part of it.
Keyshawn.
Okay, so we've established that our youth have innovation, they are creative, and technology provides us with access. I want to circle back to empowerment and say two things. One, I want to charge the young persons in the audience, in the wider audience and in the room, to take initiative. A number of our presenters have said that they would have gone about, tried some things, failed, then eventually they were successful, and that is something you should take away. Secondly, more intimate to my heart is that you should never be afraid of being the least knowledgeable and skilled in a room. It simply means that you have the greatest potential for learning and growth. Don't try to get into the rooms where you feel that you're the alpha, you know the most. Sneak into the rooms, whether it's online forums, whether it's in physical forums, where you know the least, because it creates the greatest potential for you to learn and grow. And I think that is one thing I've taken away, and I've made a life value. Coupled with humility, I've made a life value, and it has done a lot for me moving forward into the future of technology.
Thank you. To our youths, your future is bright. You have a remarkable road ahead of you, and we look forward to working with you collectively as we build our digital future in Grenada and across our beautiful Caribbean region. Thank you for your questions, your comments. You were amazing. And please join me in thanking our panelists, Zinzi Noel, Derica Samuel, Micah Lambert, and Keyshawn Paul. Thank you so much. Mr. Batiste?
Thank you very much. From connectivity to opportunity, empowering Grenadian youth to shape a safe, inclusive digital future. Stay on stage for photo op. Okay, very well. Thank you again. At this juncture, I acknowledge the arrival, the presence of Grenada's Minister for Digital Transformation, Honorable Ron Redhead. Good to see you, sir, and welcome. All right, to move the vote of thanks on day one, please welcome once more Ms. Gabrielle Johnson, Vice Chair of the CTU Caribbean ICT Youth Network.
Good afternoon once again, everyone. So I hope today's discussions have been, as enlightening as they have been thought-provoking, and that they have given us all a lot to reflect as we consider the future of youth in the digital space. So as we bring the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum to a close, I think today's discussions have reinforced something important, and that is, connectivity is only the beginning. Having access to the internet, devices, and digital platforms matter. But the real question is, what young people are able to do with that access? Can they use it to learn? Can they use it to build skills, create businesses, develop innovations, participate in internet governance, and help shape the policies that will define their digital future? And can they do so in digital spaces that are safe, inclusive, and respectful of their rights and voices? These questions connect closely with the wider conversations we've had throughout this forum, particularly around youth and the future of the digital Caribbean, and the journey from connectivity to opportunity. The future of our digital society is not simply about building better networks or adopting new technologies. It is about creating an ecosystem where Caribbean youth have the skills, the opportunities, the platforms, and the confidence to shape what comes next. That means addressing the barriers that still exist: affordability, the digital divide, skills gaps, limited access to opportunities, and concerns around safety and inclusion. At the same time, protecting young people online cannot mean simply removing them from the spaces where they learn, where they connect, create, build their futures. We need approaches that make these spaces safer while preserving young people's agency and ensuring their voices are part of the solution. So perhaps our goal should be more than just simply connected youth. We should be working towards empowered youth, young people who are connected, skilled, digitally confident, economically active, and able to participate meaningfully in the decisions that affect them. And that responsibility does not rest with young people alone. Governments, businesses, civil society, technology companies, and regional institutions all have a role to play in creating the conditions for us young people to move from connectivity to opportunity, and from opportunity to leadership. Because Caribbean youth should not simply be preparing for the digital future that someone else designs, they should be helping to design it. So on behalf of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, I want to extend my sincere thanks to our panelists, speakers, partners, organizers, and everyone who joined us here in the beautiful Spice Isle of Grenada and online. A special thank you to the Government of Grenada, the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, the schools, universities, and the many youth-led organizations that continue to support and create opportunities for young people. And most importantly, thank you to the young people who continue to bring your ideas, your voices, and your perspectives to these conversations. Your participation is what makes this forum meaningful, and your voice is essential to really shaping the digital future of the Caribbean. And to the young people here today, I encourage you to stay connected beyond this forum. A QR code is supposed to be up on the screen shortly, so please scan the QR code when it comes up to join the Caribbean ICT Youth Network and be part of our growing community of young Caribbean voices shaping our digital future. It should come up shortly. And I want to leave you with something Chanel reminded us of today. If you are in the room, you have a seat at the table. Your voices matter, your perspective matters, and you have every right to help shape the decisions that affect your future. So let us continue working towards a Caribbean where every single young person has not only access to the digital world, but the opportunity, safety, and voice to help shape it. Thank you. Yes. Please feel free to scan the QR code and join the Caribbean ICT Youth Network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnston. Don't forget, all the speakers, presentations, and bios can be found on the CTU website, ctu.int. So feel free to find out much more there. All right, so before I conclude for day one, I want to invite you to join us for a welcome cocktail reception right outside the foyer. Okay, so right after this session here, you can make your way over there and be with us for the time being. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the conclusion of day one of the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum and Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum right here in St. George, Grenada. It has been a full and engaging day of insightful presentations, meaningful dialogue, and valuable exchanges on the issues that continue to shape the Caribbean's digital future. On behalf of the Government of Grenada and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, I extend sincere appreciation to all speakers, moderators, panelists, and participants for sharing their knowledge, perspectives, and experiences so generously. A special thank you to our young participants and contributors to the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, whose voices, ideas, and perspectives are essential to ensuring that the future of internet governance in the Caribbean is inclusive, forward-thinking, and responsive to the generations who will inherit and lead our increasingly digital societies. As we close day one, we encourage you to reflect on today's discussions, continue the conversations, ladies and gents, and strengthen the connections made throughout the day. We look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow for another exciting day. Alrighty, so that's it for now. Day one of CIGF and CYIGF is officially concluded. Thank you, good evening, and see you tomorrow.